He was the last of his kind. A hair-covered, 10-foot-tall humanoid with a large mouth and peg-like teeth. His hair, although it was more accurately fur, was ruddy brown and coarse. Patches of pale green lichen grew on the parts where limbs converged, and dank sweat accumulated. The heavy brow sloped forward from a high-peaked skull to hang ledge-like over large, expressive brown eyes. He looked less like a living creature, and more like what someone with bone and stone tools would have carved out of a tree trunk. His feet were large, but in proportion to his size. He trundled along beneath the redwood trees, which if he were to stand perfectly still, he would disappear into. The swinging of his long arms providing a strange counterweight that helped propel him along. Like the pendulums of a large clock, they kept time and pace. 5 seconds and 6 feet forward every time a hand brushed past a knee. Most of his time was spent slowly moving through the forest, ruminating on his position as the last of his kind. Once there were dozens like him. Dozens, but only in this part of the world. He knew there were others like him elsewhere, in places that were drier, higher, and more rocky. Like him, but not entirely like him. In the way that camels in the Sahara are like the two-humped Bactrians, and how they were in turn like llamas. Most of these differences came down to geography, but many of them came down to simple belief. He had begun his existence thousands of years ago, when the first humans to wander into this forest began to settle in and make the region into a semi-regular dwelling place. These people took in their surroundings of giant trees, mossy rocks, rivers and streams, the various animal life, and they thought to themselves, this place is special. And of course, there is some sort of being who tends to it. And with that first thought, he stepped out of the base of a tree and into his domain. He soon discovered he was not alone. There were others, and they all looked generally the same with slight variations, due mostly to being created by the different tribes of the area, but close enough that one seeing them could not deny that they were all of a kind. They resembled the wooden effigies that the humans had begun carving in their new villages. The next few thousand years were fairly uneventful. They went about their business, moving through the forest, leaving no trace of themselves but their relatively large footprints, disappearing seamlessly into the trees when a human approached, which he often thought was a bit of an odd behavior. After all, the humans had created him with their beliefs, so they knew that he existed. But the humans had also decided that as a being of supernatural nature, he should never be seen. Even though they knew what he and his kind looked like, had given him form from carved wooden logs, he and his kind habitually hid because, well, that's just what we do. Eventually, new people entered the area, humans who viewed the forest as something that needed to be conquered and tamed, but also feared. To them, it was a wild and unholy place, only fit for harvesting what usefulness they could devise with their minds of cogs and gears. These new people also feared and despised the older people who still called this land home. The newcomers viewed the beliefs of these first peoples as evil devil worship, and added it to the list of things to be conquered and feared. It was around this time that the other kind made its appearance. Whereas he and his kind were gentle giants, and the forest given anthropomorphic form, the other kind were all the worst bits of nature twisted and shaped by fearful, hateful minds into a vaguely human bestial form. These were creatures of raw impulse and instinct. They represented all the dangers that these newly arrived humans knew lurked in the pagan wilderness, the spirits that heathens worshipped and sacrificed to in the dark. Needless to say, his kind and the other kind did not get along well. As human cultures and beliefs clashed, and large trees crashed and were burned in the fires of progress, so too did the two kinds regard each other. For a start, the other kind ate flesh. This ran contrary to the older kind's vegetarian nature as guardians of the forest. Secondly, they were just impossible to talk to. This, of course, led to a few skirmishes. The older kind had begun to dwindle at this time as well. As their creators were driven and erased from the land, the belief that had given his kind their form ebbed and flowed away. The new kind proliferated and soon outnumbered their predecessors. But even that was short-lived. Even their violence and tenacity meant nothing in the changing minds of the men that had given them form. Eventually, both kinds nearly vanished. He still encountered a few of the other kind occasionally as he ambled about, but whatever animosity they once had for each other had long since faded into the tingling numbness of time and commiseration. Although they were of different kinds, they were both in the same metaphorical boat now, In the past, what would have been a violent confrontation of large tree branch clubs and thrown stones was these days just a sad shared glance. And that is the way it went for the next 100 years or so, until all of the new kinds arrived. It was the 1960s when it happened. He was taking a rest on the banks of a rocky creek somewhere in the vicinity of the Klamath River, when he was surprised to see a large hairy humanoid come strutting out of the trees on two of the largest feet he had ever seen. It looked like one of the other kind, but somehow tamer, if that was the right word for a 10-foot-tall giant hair-covered creature. It was a lighter color, too. The other kind had been black-haired, with blood-red eyes. This new kind was a brown-gray, with deep black pools for eyes, and it appeared as what he could only describe as blurry? He blinked to try and focus his eyes. He tried to greet it by raising his arm and giving a loud call of "Hroom." The new kind looked at him with its dark, deep eyes, and without a word turned around and hastily walked back the way it had come, its arms swinging rapidly. Whereas his arms moved like slow clock pendulums, this newcomer was a clock that had been wound too tight. When it was halfway from the tree line, it turned at the waist to look back at him, but it never stopped walking. Soon, he lost sight of it. That was weird, he thought. It wasn't the last encounter he would have with the new kind. In fact, it seemed that they were proliferating. He also soon learned that they had a name. His kind had a name once. They had many, in fact. In the northernmost reaches of where his kind once roamed, they were even known as Sasquatch. This new kind, however, had a name that aptly described their most notable shared characteristic, albeit the name wasn't the most creative, but that's humans for you. The new kind were called Bigfoot. Now, almost 60 years later, the big feet were numerous. Whereas the old kind had always been fairly uniform in their forms, the big feet had hundreds of different variations. The only thing in common was the giant feet, and even those didn't always match. He once came across one that had 11 toes. Another time he saw one whose feet looked like two flat pieces of plywood. The big feet came in all colors, provided that those colors were shades of brown, red, black, or gray. Although there was one out there that seemed to glow with a green light at night, and another that beeped almost mechanically. Even a few of the other kind had reappeared back into the mix. Once in a remote wooded and rocky canyon in the Trinity Alps, he encountered a 15-foot-tall orangutan, which confused him because he had no idea what an orangutan was. Yet he was still the last of his kind, a creature born out of the minds of men and the trunks of trees. He found that he could not relate to any of the new kind, the big feet. Half of them were so badly out of focus that even he, who could vanish from sight in an instant, had a hard time finding them. And talking to them, forget it. He once tried talking with a Bigfoot that was picking flowers in a meadow. It was about 8 feet tall and a reddish-brown color. "Hello there," he said. "I bring you love," said the Bigfoot. "Pardon?" he asked. "I bring you love," the Bigfoot repeated, "and peace." It made a confused face as if it was trying to read the next line from a script that only it could see. "Also, understanding." It grinned at a job well done. He let his shoulders sag a bit in disappointment, let out a sigh, and said, "That's okay. I think I'm good, actually." And he turned to walk away. As he was making his way out of the meadow, the Bigfoot waved a handful of wildflowers and called after him, "If you're ready for peace and love, just come find me. We can end all war. Just follow my gentle giant ways." Then there was the extreme Bigfoot that roamed around the forest doing stunts and eating beef jerky. It was enough to make him lose hope. Currently, he was leaning against a lone redwood tree on a rocky outcropping high on top of a hill somewhere near the coast. It was nighttime. Far below him, he could hear all of the various cries, calls, hoots, and howls of the various big feet as they darted in and out of flashlight beams and ducked out of the way of trail cameras, and they piled up logs in bizarre and pointless configurations. They had inherited the habit of being unseen. Well, almost unseen. With the old kind, it was a matter of spiritual belief that made them hard to see. It was veneration. They were hard to see because the people believed that they were hard to see. But now, the people only believed because they were hard to see. It was all rather maddening. So now Big Feet went out of their way to be partially seen and to leave just enough evidence to keep the belief going. He pondered sadly. Maybe if we had acted like jackasses, there'd be more of us too. He leaned back against the tree and faded into the trunk. Hello, and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place for science, skepticism, and humor. Wait. Hello, and welcome
Anthropology, too. Don't forget the anthropology.
It's only been 100 episodes. Hello, and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place for science, skepticism, humor, and anthropology. Meet to discuss all things spooky, haunting, supernatural, and sometimes just the plain ridiculous. I'm your host, Cody Franks, and joining me as almost always is... always bringing charming demeanor, everybody's favorite guy, has integrity, jubilant, kind, loving, mischievous, nuanced, open-minded, passionate, quizzical, radiating silliness, triumphantly, unfailingly, valiantly wonderful, zenial, youthfully exuberant, zesty.
Garth. Zenial?
Zenial means hospitality or displaying hospitality.
That's me, A to Z. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our 100th episode. I loved that cold open. That was a wonderful story that you did, Cody.
Oh, thanks.
I was trying to not react, but also chuckling.
I saw you over there with your eyes closed, just taking it in.
I was just listening. Yeah, that was a good way to start this. So welcome to our 100th episode.
100 episodes!
Can you believe it? Here we are.
The Garth's moniker, again, from Discord, that was a team effort. It was New Jared suggested, hey, why don't we try to do it alphabetical instead of an alliteration this time? And he got it started, and then Ken took the ball and ran with it. And then I changed a few words. I added zenial. It used to be xylophone zebra, and I made it zenial and zesty.
I was wondering what you were going to do with X. That was great.
You know, this is a really cool feature on Google. Well, it's not Google, it's a cool feature on the internet that you can just search adjective and then the letter, and they'll bring you a list.
Oh yeah, no, I use thesaurus.com all the time, and for variations of things, especially when I'm trying to do rhyming stuff.
Yeah, so if you want to participate in creating a moniker for Garth, you can do so on our Discord. There's a link down in the show notes. Come join us on Discord. And you can also become a patron of our show, patreon.com/leasthaunted. Well, you know, if you like what you hear.
You might.
You might.
If you've been with us this long, maybe you do.
Or this is your first time.
Yeah, I always try to remember that some people just randomly pick episodes if they're like, oh yeah, let's check this out. So welcome for all you first-time listeners.
Welcome to episode 100.
Yes. We'll be talking this whole time about how this is our 100th episode.
And speaking of, I just went into our email, and we've got a message from somebody. We'll play the message now.
All right.
Hi, Cody and Garth. Haunted San Jose is wishing you a very happy 100th episode. Congratulations on all the hard work, and you are doing a public service by bringing science and rationalism to the people. So keep it up, and looking forward to the next 100.
Thank you, Elizabeth Kyle. That was so nice of you. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's Elizabeth Kyle of author of Haunted San Jose and our parapsychologist.
Two-time guest of the show.
Yep, yeah. Thank you so much. And I have a feeling we're going to be doing something with them again soon.
Yep.
Okay, so 100 episodes.
It is amazing. You would think for a cryptozoological paranormal podcast, we would have hit this as an episode number 1. No.
No, yeah.
Episode 100. We're finally getting to Bigfoot.
The Bigfoot.
Have
you heard of the Bigfoot?
Yes, I have. Have you heard of the Bigfoot?
The Bigfoot? Yes. So you'd think on one hand, I don't think he needs much of an introduction, but on the other hand, yeah, he does. He's Bigfoot. You know, you gotta introduce him right.
Sure.
So Garth, as I normally ask, you know, what do you know about the topic? What do you know about the Bigfoot?
Well, he's like I always think of him as a caveman, kind of a tall Wookiee, Harry and the Hendersons combo. And he's got big feet that are left. The footprints are left, and ergo his name, Bigfoot.
Yeah. Okay.
So, I mean, this is actually worth talking about because we have people who listen to this podcast all around the world, and I mean, you and I are surrounded by Bigfoot stuff living here in California.
Yeah.
But really, the whole country of the United States has Bigfoot sightings in museums and festivals
spread
everywhere in the country. But that's this country.
Yeah.
So maybe people from other parts of the world wouldn't really know much about Bigfoot.
I used to have a book. I tried to find it in my storage before recording and for the research purposes, but it was a book that was a field guide to Sasquatches, Bigfoots, and other hairy hominoids.
It's pretty specific. Are there other hairy hominoids?
Yes.
Okay.
And it even had a thing where it talked
Yeti.
about. It even had a whole thing that talked about merbeans in there, because the idea that maybe mermaids are actually aquatic big feet.
Oh, furry mermaids.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah,
Like
right.
otters.
They're actually
Like otters. Yeah. Okay.
Are you
big
an otter?
whiskers.
I've always thought it was more of a bear. Anyway,
These big feet keep these big feet keep rocks in their armpits for cracking.
Yeah, but in that field guide, it talked about like northern Russia. There's a lot of like sightings of things that are like, what we would think of as an abominable snowman or a yeti.
Okay.
I think we mentioned that briefly in the
So
Yeti
they came
episode.
across the land bridge to the New World along with people.
Maybe.
Okay.
So to start off with, I went to the Cryptozoology A to Z encyclopedia with the young cryptozoologist Cody.
We've been seeing a lot of this book lately.
Even their entry on Bigfoot does not start with a description of Bigfoot. You have to go a full 9 or 10 paragraphs down to the second page of the entry.
On page 2, we'll tell you what we're talking about. This is Bigfoot.
Yeah, this is Bigfoot. And they describe Bigfoot as, quote, Bigfoot is bulky and stocky with an enormous barrel torso and a height, when mature, of 6 to 9 feet. The creature has a small pointed head with no neck or forehead. Its eyes are small, round, and dark and stare forward. The face is light in young, dark in older individuals with a heavy brow ridge and a continuous up-curled fringe of hair on the brow ridge. The hair covering is shaggy. There is no difference between body and head hair. All of it is relatively short, with darker colored hair at younger ages, moving into red-browns with some evidence of silver at extreme maturity. The distinctive footprint, as the name implies, shows a track as left by a giant 5-toed human foot. Not always the case. When the first Bigfoot incidents noted above, which I'm going to talk about one of these events later, occurred in October 1958, the massive tracks in the mud near Bluff Creek, California, all measured 16 inches long and were 7 inches wide. Hence the name Bigfoot.
So what's up with the pointy head part? That's interesting.
So the pointy head is that I think people are trying to increase the ape-like aspect of it.
Okay.
So what you would be seeing is what's called a sagittal crest on the skull.
Is that a thing in other great apes?
It is. If you look at a gorilla, you will notice that it has a very distinct, like almost a bone ridge. One of my favorite paleo anthropological specimens is the Paranthropus boisei, which was another human. It wasn't. We can't say it was a human ancestor. It was existing at the same time as, say, like Lucy, the Australopithecus afarensis.
This is like what 50,000 years ago.
3.5 million years ago. This is 3.5 million years ago.
Okay.
So you have Australopithecus afarensis, Lucy, and at the same time you have other like genuses and other species that have upright walking apes at that time.
But this is further back, because you often hear these days about the distinctions between different types of human beings.
Yes.
Like you have Neanderthals and Denisovians. That's all more modern.
That's all within the last like 100,000 years.
Yeah, we're talking about 3 million years
3.5 million years
ago. So
ago.
there were other upright walking apes.
Yes.
That were kind of following the trajectory that our ancestors did.
And one of these offshoots was Paranthropus. Although I think there are. Now, this was not in notes. This is me going purely from memory. Okay. From my anthropology days, my old classes. So you have Paranthropus, which sometimes is synonymous with what they call the robust Australopithecines, because they are stockier and they're built differently. It'd be like comparing a chimp to a gorilla, basically. And they also seem to be very much, they probably were vegetarians because they have this very large bone mohawk called a sagittal crest.
In this case, we would be the chimp and they would be the gorilla. So these are big old guys.
Yeah, and the sagittal crest is an anchor point for chewing muscles. The muscles that go, like when you chew, if you move your mouth,
I can feel it going up behind my ears.
And it goes through a thing called the zygomatic arch.
Yeah, that
under your eye, and that muscle passes through, and it anchors to the top of your skull. That's the sagittal line that runs along your skull, and so you have this thing called a sagittal crest. The larger the crest, the bigger the muscles that are anchored to it.
I don't have very big jaw muscles. My
Some
head is smooth.
You can look at dog skulls, canid skulls, and you can see they have a sagittal anchor point.
Oh, yeah. My dog Spot, the Dalmatian, when she was getting toward the end of her life, she had a very skeletal
and you
face.
can see a big bump on her head?
You could see her skull quite well through the fur.
Bump. Yeah.
And yeah, that was really prominent.
Bears have a very distinctive and large one. Oh. So you have, the point is you have this skull that is a human relative. So it's a very humanoid looking skull.
Oh, okay.
And it has a bone mohawk, and it's just fucking cool. And that is my favorite one, just based on that. It's my favorite fossil specimen. So moving forward, they're like, oh, well, this thing is more ape-like. We're going to base it on a gorilla. Gorillas have more conical heads because gorillas, being vegetarians that eat a lot of fibrous material, they have these huge sagittal crests that anchor those muscles.
Because they need to chew up really heavy-duty, sinewy material.
So that is why you see these depictions of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, and they have a very high conical head. Also, the idea that sloped foreheads and a sloped face. This is an old idea of archaic human ancestors, like the Neanderthal had a sloped forehead, which is true. It was until you get to Homo sapiens or archaic Homo sapiens that you start seeing the high, flat forehead.
Mine's a little bit sloped if you look at me in profile.
Yeah.
I've got kind of a totally rounded curve, but like if you look at people that are, I'm mostly of European ancestry, but not completely. But like other people who are totally European, it's like straight up forehead, and then there's kind of a turn, and then flat. But I've got like a dome.
But also within all modern humans, there is such a wide variation in facial characteristics.
There really is. It seems like there's more than other animals to me, but maybe that's just
and that's the thing that like a lot of people. There's people who push racist things. Are like, oh no, it's all in the bones. It's like, well, there are things that are, and there are things that aren't.
Phrenology, right?
Yeah. So there's this idea of like, oh, Bigfoot must be some kind of missing link between ape and man, therefore has a mixture of ape and human characteristics. Also, it's got to be dumb because it's a missing link, right? And so let's give it that sloped, archaic forehead of the Neanderthal.
It occurs to me, and maybe I'm jumping ahead here about why people believe in Bigfoot, but it would make sense that he's a more reasonable cryptid. We just did that cryptid episode on what a cryptid is, and it's like, well, he could just be a unknown missing link from the past. He doesn't have bat wings, or he's not some weird chimera. But
also the term missing link gets thrown around a lot.
I don't hear it as much anymore
because it's outdated. There is no missing link between us and the great apes, because that implies that we evolved from the great apes, and we did not. I mean, we are a great ape, but we did not evolve from the other ones.
Yeah,
we all have a common
didn't
ancestor.
Descend from monkeys so much as monkeys and us have a common ancestor.
There's a common ancestor back in the day.
And that ancestor looked like a monkey to us, but is just
in fact, if there really was a missing link between us and say like chimps, it would look more like a monkey.
Right,
because that's how far back it is. That's how far back you have to go. There's that line of like the human evolution line, you know, where like it starts with like the knuckle walker and then it stands up. That is so wrong.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, that is an very outdated thing, because it also implies that everything is this like progressive movement.
It does indicate that we're at the end of the
there's so many fossil hominins. I think the term used to be hominid, but now it's hominin, meaning things that look like the genus Homo.
Yeah.
Homonin. Yeah,
we're Homo sapiens versus Homo.
We're actually Homo sapiens sapiens. We're a subspecies.
Oh, yeah, we're doubled.
Yeah.
Homo sapiens sapien.
But there's so many that, because they're in the fossil record, and so you can't get DNA from them. So there are ones that we cannot say that actually led to us. You know, there's some like we don't know. Like that might be a dead end. You know, but it might have led to us.
Yeah, it's a branch in a shared tree, but it's not a direct.
Like I said, there was a whole bunch
ancestor.
Of the time of Lucy. There was a whole bunch of like. Okay, so we get the name like Homo habilis is probably I think the first member of the genus Homo to be named was Homo habilis. But I think there's now some that we can say are Homo, but they're older than that, and that means handyman, because we can say this thing was making tools.
Yes,
right. It was already walking upright.
Oh, okay.
There's this misconception that like we had to get smart and then we started walking upright. But the evidence from the fossil record shows that like, no, first came bipedalism. And because of the advantages of bipedalism, there was it was a ripple effect where it's like, well, it frees your hands to do other things. The head now being up is less exposed to the sunlight. There's better thermoregulation. It's more calorie efficient to move in that way. You can travel longer distances. And also it made them higher vantage point. They could see predators. There's a bunch of things that come from it. And then once you start making tools, now they're cracking open bones and getting bone marrow, which is...
That's a dietary jump.
And that's the protein. The protein that they're getting more protein, animal-based protein. That's when the brain starts to grow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's very fascinating. So, okay, so when would all of this have been? Like 5 million years ago? Probably over a long period of time.
Well, I brought up I wanted to bring up Homo habilis because they were still around at the same time as Lucy.
Oh, okay.
You have a bunch of that lasted like 1 million years. They were hanging out for a real... Humans, Homo sapiens have only been around for about 200,000 years, 250 is like being generous to say like that is what we would call an archaic, like Cro-Magnon, archaic Homo sapien, 250,000 years ago. That's nothing. That's a blink in the eye compared to how long these other hominins existed on this earth.
I've always, well, I haven't always, but I've heard that, we're the last of the different kinds of humans.
Yeah.
It used to be Neanderthals and
Yeah.
all these different ones, Denisovians, and we're the last ones. But it sounds like that's true of it in more modern times. But we're also the last of these bipedal guys. So even further back, our ancient human ancestors had other great apes that were also walking upright, and they were the last of them too.
Yeah.
So this has happened a couple times.
And they were all like existing simultaneously. Wow. There's a lot of overlap, which is just insane to think about.
Were they distinct species where they couldn't create fertile offspring? Do you think? Maybe we don't have enough information.
Not enough information for some of them. Some it's probably more unlikely. Another thing that starts to take shape, so you go like bipedalism, and then the teeth change. We get a very distinctive U-shaped jaw. Whereas if you look at other primates, like monkeys and stuff, it's more like
and sticks out like a dog.
Yeah, more of a V. So we start getting that. The dentition changes, also with the diet is changing. But that Paranthropus I mentioned, he had big old gorilla teeth.
Oh,
he was chewing things. As we get into like further along, we start talking about, maybe now is the time to talk about one of the things that people try to say is Bigfoot.
Okay.
Hey, listeners, if you haven't realized, this is not like a regular episode. Normally, the regular episode follows like a progression.
I was considering putting a chapter title 10 minutes ago saying, now we talk about evolution.
So one of the things that gets brought up is like, hey, this is what Bigfoot is this species called Gigantopithecus blackeye.
I have heard of the Gigantopithecus. What is the last part of that?
Blackeye or blackeye?
Oh, blackeye. Okay.
So the way nomenclature works is you have the genus name, and then you have the species. In this case, Gigantopithecus would be the genus.
That's the broader
which
umbrella.
Translates to giant ape. Pithecus is ape. Like when I said like Australopithecus afarensis, Australopithecus means southern ape.
Oh, okay.
And then Afar is a region. So Afarensis means the southern ape from the Afar region.
Okay. Was that Africa?
And that's in Africa.
Okay.
So the species can either be based on where it was found or who found it gets to name it sometimes. When we talked about the okapi in the last episode, I said that it had a name that was that had a different genus. He created its own genus,
right?
But its species name was it Johnstonii, after Johnston, who discovered it or described it. The current nomenclature for okapi, the genus is okapi.
Okay.
The species is Johnstonii still, after the guy who described it.
They swapped it around.
Yeah. So that's how those nomenclatures work. And also there's this thing that's precedence. If somebody's already named something, you can't use that name, obviously.
Well, yeah, you don't want to rename that thing, then use the name somewhere else. That's confusing.
And that you run into that with paleontology a lot. There's a lot of things where they find a fossil and they misname it the first time, and then somebody comes along and says, well, actually it's this. Like, well, anyway, getting off topic.
Brontosaurus, Apatosaurus, back and forth.
Yeah, Brachiosaurus, yeah. So, Gigantopithecus blackeye. Blackeye or black eye. It is only known from like a few fossils, which are primarily teeth and parts of the jaw.
Just teeny little bits by which they extrapolate this. This
but
creature.
Based on the jaw, the part of the jaw, and its shape and the teeth and the dentition of the teeth, like its characteristics, they were able to deduce like, this is a big ass ape possibly a giant ass orangutan. It would look like a big orangutan, and it was like close to 15 feet tall.
Oh,
if it stood up.
What? Wow.
Huge.
I had no idea apes ever got that big in the history of the earth.
Nobody did until the giant ape, Gigantopithecus.
15 feet? Oh my gosh.
I think if it stood up. At the shoulder.
Yeah,
these are usually measured
would never
by the...
have stood up.
Yeah.
It was hunched over, but still it could have. That's
I mean,
how
it could
long
rear
it
up
was.
like gorillas do.
Sure.
There's things like, because there's what we call habitual bipeds, which is us, or an obligate biped, which is that we have to be bipedal. But then there's other species like some of the other apes will sometimes walk short distances upright, but it's very obvious that it is awkward, it is uncomfortable, and not how they are meant to be moving.
I am surprised that, because elephants and mammoths are some of the biggest animals to walk around on the surface of the earth. They have certain shape to their bodies, their feet and stuff, that allow them to be that big.
Dissipate that.
It is amazing to me that you could have an ape shape and be that big, and that would physiologically work, and they wouldn't just collapse on themselves.
Yeah, well, it's a knuckle walking.
Sure. So they're doing both, but even then, just the distribution of weight to be 15 feet. And that's incredible.
Now, I got to stress, that's if it stood up at full height.
Sure. And they're making a lot of educated...
Primarily, and they're making guesses.
Because they're really basing this on teeth and part of a jaw.
Yeah, I'd say probably like maybe about 12 foot is probably more likely the average.
Okay.
But but again, we only have a few things. And and we don't even know exactly where these fossils came from. They were found in an apothecary being sold as dragon teeth in China.
Oh, wow. Well, that was the other thing I was going to ask is, we all know humans all came from Africa originally. Yeah. And we're talking about pre-human, so this is all would have been in Africa millions of years ago.
But Gigantopithecus, they were able to use dating techniques of the fossils because people talk about radiocarbon dating is based on organic material. Mm-hmm. You can then do what's called potassium argon dating to date isotopes in rocks and fossils.
Wow.
And there's other way. There's a bunch of isotopic analysis where you can figure out how old something is. The Gigantopithecus probably existed between 1 million to 100,000 years ago.
Oh, that's pretty recent compared
to
the
the
other
modern humans,
numbers.
I said archaic Homo sapiens show up 250,000 years ago, there were archaic humans, or archaic Homo sapiens, I should say, around who probably encountered Gigantopithecus.
We're talking about our ancestors close enough that they would have more or less looked like modern humans.
Yeah.
And they were living at the same time as these Gigantopithecus.
In the same areas.
Oh, now, and that's the other question about the areas. So would this all have been Africa?
No, China.
Oh, but these things were being sold in an apothecary in China. Does that mean that they were found in China originally?
Yeah. I think that they might have found some other stuff since, but the original specimens, the first time they found it, the teeth were sold as dragon teeth in an apothecary. And someone's like, that's an ape's tooth.
Interesting. So
and then since then they have found smaller fragments. Yeah.
So the great apes had already dispersed out of Africa to other parts of
because you got like orangutans down in Southeast Asia. Gibbons. People never think about gibbons, but they're there. This little shit gibbons.
I never think about gibbons enough. I got to think about gibbons more.
They got no tail. They's an ape.
Hello.
Hi.
Happy 100 hauntings.
Hardy, hurrahs.
Hags.
Hobgoblins.
Harpies.
Hellhounds.
Headless horsemen.
Huh?
Yeah, we're really high.
It's really hard when you're high.
To do alliteration.
Yes, but we...
Happy 100th episode.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary. Happy anniversary from Doom Generation.
Yay. Later, Doomers.
Oh, thank you so much. That was great.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
I can't wait to collaborate with you again, and that was really sweet of you.
Yeah. So the argument is that Gigantopithecus crossed the Bering Land Bridge, came into the Americas, and is now somehow bipedal.
Well, he's been evolving as long as we have.
I guess.
So,
but we were already bipedal at that point.
Well, maybe he's doing some fast evolving. Yeah, I don't know.
As we found about bipedal apes and hominins, the bipedalism comes first.
Right. Okay, interesting.
So, there's a lot of leaps to make there. And also, again, it's like we've never found any fossils. That's the thing, too. Primate fossils in North America, the most recent, I think, primate fossils in North America, not counting monkeys,
I was going to say, yeah, monkeys. There's
was
monkeys in South America.
Yeah, but there's no apes. We've never found any ape fossils.
Interesting. Okay, got
I'm
it.
pretty sure that's the case. Is there's never been any ape fossils beyond an ape ancestor.
There was an ape ancestor in the Americas?
Well, there's. Now we're getting into stuff
I'm not trying to argue
no,
for Bigfoot here. I'm just curious.
No, but
I
you're
never
asking
thought
me.
about any of this.
You're asking me to cite things that's like I know these things, but I don't have the actual citations in front of me because
I'm not going to.
I wasn't expecting to be talking about that.
Fair enough.
But yeah, no, there is. Also, at the time this happened, it's like it's so long ago that because the monkeys that are in the Americas now did not evolve in the Americas.
Oh.
They came here. So it's kind of like how horses came back.
Oh,
there was something that was here.
Yeah.
Left, went extinct. And then millions of years later, their descendants made their way back.
Oh, okay. So how did that work with the monkeys in South America?
They most likely arrived on driftwood rafts. They got swept off of fucking...
From Africa?
Yeah, because here's the thing is the monkeys in the New World have more archaic traits than the monkeys in the Old World in Africa.
Oh.
They have traits that are more common to a group called prosimians, which are lemurs.
Oh, okay.
Than they do to Old World monkeys. Prehensile tails.
So that would indicate that they didn't develop in that South America. They just moved there.
And also that they drifted away before the ones in the Old World arrived at their current state.
I see.
They are throwbacks.
What?
They're older.
What a
none of this is Bigfoot.
What a driftwood journey
yeah, we
that
drifted
would be.
away.
Yeah. Okay, we've drifted away from the topic.
Yeah.
Let's recenter ourselves.
We got to get back. Okay, so Gigantopithecus, that's what the people say, is the Bigfoot, or some do. If it was, you would need a breeding population of giant apes, the largest ape that has ever lived. You would need a breeding population, eating a lot of food. You would need to have those food sources. At the time, the Gigantopithecus would have been in a tropical rainforest where there's lots of wild fruit and stuff like that. They're actually, I think, most likely in like bamboo forests. Transpose that
in China.
Yeah, in China. Yeah. Now, if you transpose that to North America, the traditional home range of the Sasquatch or Bigfoot, British Columbia, Washington, Oregon,
not
Northern
very
California.
Tropical, at least now.
It is still considered a temperate rainforest, though.
That's true.
But we don't have a lot of fruit that's wild.
Right.
It's a lot of conifers.
Well, the Bigfoot ate them all, Cody.
There's a lot of conifers. It's all conifers. So they would have to probably be eating meat as well.
Okay.
So they're probably
salmon.
Salmon. That's a good point.
They eat
we already
fish.
we already have giant predators in the area that are thriving.
Yeah. What do the other giant predators eat?
Yeah.
Bears eat salmon.
And plant and carry on and decaying animals. They're scavengers. So Bigfoot would then have to be a scavenger. Some of that holds up. People say, they're like getting into trash cans and stuff. We're getting really far away from where I wanted to be.
I don't know where we want to be, so I'm not going to be very
I know.
here.
You're exactly where you need to be.
I'm just riffing along with whatever we're talking about.
Yeah, let's listen to another congratulations message.
Okay, this will center us.
Hey everybody, Abe Epperson from Small Beans here. Just wanted to give a hearty congrats to Cody and Garth of the Least Haunted Podcast. 100 episodes. That's rad. Here's to another 100, you freaks. In fact, let's make that 500. You're never going to stop podcasting. That's the real haunt. You, in front of your microphones, forever. Woo! Make sure to click all the things and read their blog, leasthaunted.com.
Thanks, Abe. Oh, man, that was great.
He called us freaks.
Yeah, we love you, Abe. We love you.
Got to have you back on.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so trying to get recentered.
I feel perfectly centered. We're going to move on talking about Bigfoot.
Yes. Okay. Now, we've said the term Sasquatch a few times.
Yes.
I want to actually stress that in going forward, I'm not really going to be talking about Sasquatch.
Oh.
And I'm making a distinction here because Bigfoot is either a biological entity or it's a spiritual being. We have to decide now, which are we trying to look at?
Oh, okay, I see.
We're going to go for the biological route.
Okay.
Now, the name Sasquatch comes from
Is it an indigenous term?
it's an indigenous term
Oh,
from a
okay.
specific people.
I kind of got that impression from the short story we started this show with.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, we're going to talk, about the origin of the name Sasquatch. And then that's about as far as I'm going to go into Sasquatch.
Okay.
And I'll explain why.
Sasquatch will be episode 200.
Well, no. Okay. So, the name Sasquatch, it comes from the Stahelis people. It's a First Nations indigenous nation that they're in west coast of British Columbia.
Oh, okay.
They've been there for 10,000 years.
Wow.
Or at least there's like
Yeah,
habitation. Yeah, right. And the name isn't Sasquatch, it's Saskets.
Saskets.
And it's actually derived from a toponym. Toponym is a place name. There is a mountain that is sacred to them that is called Saskets Tell, which means the place where the Sasquatches meet.
Wow.
And Saskets to them, it translates to hairy man. He is it's not an animal. He is a actual person, a spiritual entity who is a guardian of the forest.
This was our main character from the short story.
A version of
Or
him.
I was gonna say you weren't specifically doing their thing.
I was making up a.
You were riffing on the idea for sure.
But
to be clear,
in some early sightings of Saskets prior to the 1950s, he's not an ape. He's described as a giant indigenous man who's hairy.
Oh,
just an actual human being covered in hair.
More like a Bjorn from The Hobbit.
Yes.
Yeah. Except for it doesn't turn into a bear. But yeah. Got it.
According to a quote from a tribal leader, that if you see Saskets or you see the footprints, that is intentional. Saskets wants you to see as a reminder of an agreement that humans made with Saskets and nature long ago, that we would be stewards and take care of nature. This is supposed to be like, hey, remember the contract. Here's the sign. Also, Saskets is a shapeshifter. So it falls into our indigenous
So that actually is very Bjornish then.
Yeah, but also refer back to our indigenous shapeshifters episode. So Saskets can turn invisible, can turn into trees, rocks to avoid detection. And that's about as far as I'm going to go with it because it is an indigenous thing.
We should get someone who can speak about that.
Yes, it's kind of like how when we had Josh Balls on here and we talked about indigenous shapeshifters, he would not talk about the skinwalker because it's taboo. It's Navajo and he is not Navajo, so it's not for him to talk about.
He didn't feel for sure.
So and that's how this thing with Sasquatch is another example of that, I feel, where the term Sasquatch has now been taken and commercialized and bastardized,
a shadow of it
into all these other
self,
things. When at the core, it's no, this is actually a specific group of people's spiritual beliefs that has been taken by colonizers, and made into something that it's not.
I wonder, are there? As in most cases, the Native people still exist wherever they were. Are there people now who could speak about this?
Yeah,
in British Columbia.
There are people that they are still there. We would just reach out.
If anybody knows anyone, that would be a fascinating conversation.
And fun fact, the Stahalish have hosted an annual every June Sasquatch Days Festival since 1938, which predates the existence of the term Bigfoot and all other Bigfoot festivals. Because it's a spiritual event for them.
Is it open to anyone, or do you have to?
I don't know.
Boy, that would be cool if we're allowed to go.
Yeah, I would like to.
We should learn more about that.
Yeah, look more into that. Yeah. That was just an article that came up. It was actually from the BBC, and it was called "The True Origin of Sasquatch."
Wow. So you were just saying now that they're from the 1930s, and that predates Bigfoot. So Bigfoot's a pretty recent thing.
Okay. And that was a good way to segue into.
I was trying.
Our next
I'm really
thing.
trying to help.
Thanks. We've also been going for. This says we've been going for like 54 minutes.
Well, we took breaks and stuff.
Yeah.
This is our 100th episode. It better be long.
Bones?
Okay, so
should we look for big feet.
Let's
tracks?
look for some Bigfoot tracks, and when we come back, we're going to learn about the origin of the guy, our man,
Bigfoot.
What was that laugh? I asked myself. I'm trying to recreate that as much as possible. I don't think I've ever laughed like that in my life. That was new. What is that? This is my new laugh for 2024. New year, new laugh.
We have a spanking new podcast for your ear holes called Doom Generation.
Available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Later, Doomers.
Do you like beer?
Of course you do.
Do you like good food?
You better believe it.
Then we have the show for you.
It's the Hoppy Trails Podcast.
I'm Nick.
I'm Travis, and on each episode of Hoppy Trails, we invite you to come along on our journey to explore craft beverages and the foods that accompany them.
Check out Hoppy Trails on hoppytrailspod.com or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Connect with us on Instagram at hoppytrailspod or reach out to hoppytrailspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Come travel the Hoppy Trails with us, and remember to always say yes to the hoppy ending.
Cheers!
Imagine, if you will, a podcast both like and unlike those which grapple for the attention of those who immerse themselves in the world of the paranormal. Hey boys, this is Havelock, and I'm proud to be a Monster Squad patron. Love the work you two do, and I'm looking forward to episode 100, to more this new year with all the wacky nonsense in the world there is to cover, and all the great characters Lease Haunted has created to enjoy. Good luck, and the only thing that's haunted is you.
Thank you, Lord Havelock. And we just looked for Yeti tracks and we couldn't find any, but at least we found a message from Lord Havelock.
Well,
Thank
we
you
didn't
so
find
much.
Yeti tracks. We would have been looking for Bigfoot.
Did
tracks.
I say Yeti?
You said Yeti.
I don't listen to what I say. I
It's
actually
okay.
thought I said Bigfoot. Welcome back, everybody.
So now that I've said that I'm not going to talk about Sasquatch, I'm going to talk about Bigfoot as a
Bigfoot.
distinct entity from
Yes.
Sasquatch.
Let's not mix them up.
Yes,
Okay.
distinct. The Ape Canyon incident of 1924.
Is this a backwards carousel of time, or is this just?
Let me tell you about the Ape Canyon incident.
He takes a drag of his unfiltered cigarette. I've got a story for you,
I got a
buddy.
story for you. Ape Canyon. Although it wasn't called Ape Canyon at the time, you see. July 16th, 1924. There's an article in the Oregonian. It's a newspaper.
Ah.
And it's telling about some gold prospectors. A guy named Fred Beck.
Ah.
No turntables, no microphone. Beck. But he's looking
Wait,
for mellow
where-
gold.
where is
he's
he
looking
at?
for mellow
Oh.
gold. He's in a gorge near the Mount St. Helens.
Ah, okay.
Hasn't erupted yet. Hasn't erupted for thousands of years.
Oh, wow.
Looking for gold. Him and some buddies. They say they're attacked by, get this, gorilla men.
What?
Yeah,
No way.
gorilla men. They attack them near their remote cabin. They shoot. Well, they say that they're looking for gold. They're panning, right? And he looks
Yeah.
up, and there's this furry gorilla head pokes out. So the first response is, shoot it.
Oh, no.
Like in that movie, The Predator, when they're all shooting in the jungle at the Predator.
Yeah.
It's like that, but they're with rifles and pistols. And,
Yeah, because it's
and
the 20s.
Yeah, the 1920 gold prospectors.
100 years
I don't
ago.
know who this character is.
This
on
is
here.
great. Keep going. Keep going. We'll name him later. We're still recording, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
This
good.
is still going.
Oh,
this
good.
This is all happening.
Oh, good.
Real
I wouldn't want
time.
to. I wouldn't want to lose this gold. All
I
right.
am channeling this fucker in real time. So they shoot at him. They hit one of them in the arm, supposedly,
Uh-huh.
and then they run off. Later that night, they're back at their cabin. The cabin is now being attacked by a whole bunch of gorilla men.
Oh,
Whereas
vengeance.
it was one gorilla man, now it's they're pissed.
Retribution.
They're pissed. They're throwing rocks.
Oh no.
So they say all night they're fighting what they call these gorilla men.
All night.
One rock comes through the roof and it knocks Beck unconscious.
Ah.
Is there some kind of fun Beck joke we could make?
About unconsciousness?
Yes.
Let me
Is there
think.
a song lyric or a song title?
Cold Brains?
Is that one of them?
Yeah.
Yeah, so knocks
He's
Beck. Beck gets a case of cold brains. He gets knocked unconscious from a rock
dang.
that comes through the ceiling. When he regains consciousness in the morning, all the stuff is stopped. I imagine it'd be much like some podcast is stuck in a cabin being attacked by time-displaced ghosts, and then it ends in the morning.
I can imagine that.
Yeah. It would happen in like episode 15, I guess.
Yeah, that
anyway,
sounds right.
That's what happens. They wake up, gorilla men gone, they flee. They go to the U.S. Forest Service, and they say, hey, we want to file a report we were attacked by gorilla men. The foresters go out there and they find like there's no rocks, there's no holes in the ceiling. It doesn't seem like anything happened there. So it's a weird thing. Like these guys are telling
wait a
stories.
minute. Hold on.
What happened? But ever since then, that gorge called Ape Canyon.
Wow.
And now you know the rest of the fucking story.
I do. Yeah. And now you know the rest of the story. That was good. Yeah,
Okay,
we got to name that guy.
Yeah, I don't know who that guy was. Oh, he's out of me now.
Where'd he go?
Out the window.
I'm glad you're back, Cody. Boy, you just missed it. There was this grizzled guy chain smoking unfiltered cigarettes, talking about 100 years ago.
It's like he channels dead crazy people.
He might have been related to that old gold prospector. What was that one gold prospector voice you did? A while ago? I drew him. Do you remember this guy? it was like a year ago.
The lumber wolves.
Yeah, that was the guy.
Yeah, that's the guy. He's here too.
Yep.
It's been 100 episodes, people. If you're just joining us now, you're missing out on a whole bunch of classic characters.
All kinds of classic characters. Beloved characters.
Beloved fan favorites. Okay, so.
Okay, that's an interesting story. So this was 100 years ago. 8 men battling in a cabin all night.
Near Mount St. Helens.
Right.
When
was the eruption?
1980, I think. Okay, so now we get to the name Bigfoot.
Okay.
Where's the name happen?
Okay. I know where the name comes from.
Oh, yeah. But the original story.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying. I'm being sarcastic.
Like,
I
wow,
understand what you're saying.
I just told the whole story in one character. Am I going to have to do another for this?
I don't know how long the story is.
No, okay. So it's in 1958.
Okay.
There's this guy. His name's Jerry Crew. He's a heavy equipment operator. Drives a bulldozer for a logging company. They're cutting a logging road above Bluff Creek in Humboldt County, California.
Yeah.
One day, shows up to work, and there's a whole bunch of these giant 16-inch long, that's 410 millimeters to our metric friends, human-like footprints that are deep in the mud.
A bunch of them.
Yes. I think the track is like 1,000 prints total or something like
wow,
that. Right?
Okay.
They said.
This is like fresh because
it's fresh.
Mud.
Yeah,
okay.
it's muddy. Yeah,
Got
it's wet and muddy. So then, he shows the other workers on the job site, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we've been seeing these too. This is a thing." And they're like, "Also, come to think of it, there was like a giant oil drum that we had that was like full. It was like 450 pounds of oil. That's 200 kilograms for our metric friends, and it was like just seemingly moved from one place to another." It looked with no dolly marks, like somebody just picked up this thing and moved it.
That's a heavy thing to lift up.
But also, what an odd behavior, just to move a 450-pound drum.
You could have rolled it.
Right?
I know you don't ever watch Breaking Bad, but that was a big joke when they're stealing like chemicals to make meth. Is they catch him on the video camera, and Walter and what
is it, Jesse?
Jesse, yeah. You remember the name.
I didn't even see the show.
Yeah. So Walter and Jesse are like carrying a 55-gallon drum either way. And the guys are looking like, why don't they just roll it? These guys are amateurs.
Yeah.
Why did the Sasquatch roll it?
Well,
I'm sorry. Why didn't the Bigfoot roll it?
I think the thing is, if you're Bigfoot and you're strong, you just lift things.
Bigfoot lift.
Yeah, right?
Yes.
It's fun.
Okay.
They start jokingly amongst them referring to this thing as Bigfoot on the crew because that's what it is. It's got a big foot, right?
Yeah.
At first they thought it was a prank. But then they start to find more of these tracks. And so then they contact Andrew Genzoli, who writes for the Humboldt Times. He's a reporter. Mm-hmm. He goes, interviews them, and they've got a plaster cast of one of them, takes a picture. It runs in the Humboldt Times newspaper, a story about this Bigfoot at the construction site.
Okay.
That is where the name first appears in print. Now he's Bigfoot.
That's
officially.
Bigfoot. And remind me the year again?
1958.
Wow, that's so recent. I assumed that would have been further in the past.
The photograph of the plaster cast, it's the front page of October 6, 1958. It's the front page. Now, this is back in the 50s. news stories get picked up by other papers, and they just reprint the stories, right?
They still do that today,
Yeah,
don't they?
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about the New York Times and the Los Angeles Times
It
reporting
was
on
a
Bigfoot?
slow news day, apparently. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, actually, but it's not. So here's the thing that occurred to me as I was going through this.
Uh-huh.
Like, why the 50s? Big footprint. Why?
Yeah.
Think back to our own show's history.
Okay.
When was Yeti fever?
World War II.
The 1950s.
Was it? Oh, I was thinking.
the 50s.
I was thinking of Jimmy Stewart getting the Yeti.
Well, that was
thing.
also in the 50s.
That was right.
Yeah, later,
okay.
yeah. So, but the point is that, because the Yeti, there have been stories about giant footprints going back to like the 1930s, right?
Right.
But then you actually have like
The public was primed.
yeah, well, because they're trying to
Yetis.
get to the top of Everest. You have Sir Edmund Hillary. He says he saw something and he saw footprints.
Right.
And then there's actually in the 50s, you have actual expeditions to find the Yeti. You have books and movies coming out about the Yeti. And what's the main thing about the Yeti? He's got a giant human-like footprint.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
He's
so
an
this
upright
is
walking
this
ape.
is the North America's answer to the Yeti.
Yes, he is an upright walking ape.
Okay.
So this is already in the consciousness. Plus, there are indigenous groups that have stories of larger humans who are hairy, as we mentioned.
Right.
So that's getting conflated in. Now, a lot of Bigfoot believers and researchers will bring that up. It's like, oh, well, the fact that there's so many indigenous stories about something that is like Bigfoot means it must be real. There's a really good video on YouTube. There's a YouTube channel called Trey the Explainer. Guy does excellent, well-researched deep dives.
I'll have to check
He's
him out.
thorough.
Okay.
He's a good man and thorough.
He did a video that I just watched that was about indigenous Bigfoot myths, and he examines this claim where he actually reads 175 indigenous stories across different cultures from all over North America that people have said that is a Bigfoot.
Did they share much in common?
It turns out, like, spoiler, he said out of like 175, maybe only 30 of them could actually fall into the category of what is Bigfoot or Sasquatch.
Okay. So inflated numbers here.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, because they're making like real big leaps where it's like, well, they're ignoring other cultural contexts around stories to say like, well, the story of the Wendigo, that's a Bigfoot. It's like, no, it's not.
I mean, if you whittle down what counts as a Bigfoot, it's kind of like, well, it's a big person like guy in the wilderness that is hard to see, and you sometimes see his footprint. That's pretty generic. I think a lot of people would come up with that story independently.
Well, that's a human.
That's a human story
archetype.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Like go all the way back to the Epic of Gilgamesh, and you have the character of Enkidu.
You have giants.
Well, Enkidu. Remember Gilgamesh, Enkidu, at Darmok and Chalad.
Yeah, no, I understand.
We got it. We had to get it. We have to have always have to have our Darmok reference.
You
there
figured
it
out. Well done.
Sugat! His eyes uncovered!
But no, Enkidu is a slightly larger, hairy wild man of the forest, and it's an archetype that represents as humans we have like conquered nature.
Right.
But we know that we ourselves, deep down, we know we are nature. We came out of nature. So there's a part of us that still is. And so you have this mythological dichotomy between man and nature that is represented time and again in world religions and cultures by this character of the wild man of the forest.
Okay. Got it.
But also, like we were talking about our human evolution, we know that in our human past, we did share this earth with human-like other members of our
other
genus,
great apes.
These other humans that were different. So, is there a cultural memory that was passed down in these stories?
That's interesting. Yeah.
On the island of Florence, where they found Homo florensis, aka the hobbits.
How long ago would that have been that they were around?
That one is pretty recent. It's within several thousand years.
That seems like, because if we're talking tens of thousands of years, it'd be hard to imagine a story lasting that long. But just a few thousand years?
A few thousand years. And in that culture, they had a story about little people in the woods who they, eradicated. They wiped them out. It's like, oh, well, that might actually be the case.
Wow.
Or trolls. We talked about trolls.
Yeah.
Well, They have big, broad noses. They're ugly, kind of humanoids. They live in caves. They're in Northern Europe. Neanderthals? Maybe?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So there is this, like, there are, I would say there are cultural memories of these things that have been passed on, maybe in place names or in words that we don't really understand the origin of, you know, back in Indo-European language and stuff like that. There are these little hints and clues that we did share this earth with other humans.
But that probably couldn't be possible for North America, though, for Sasquatch.
It would have been people coming, the first peoples coming over Beringia who still have this memory.
Oh, so they would be carrying it over from what is now Russia, from
Pretty
Asia.
much.
Okay.
And that's also, when humans came into North America, all those other species were gone. That they were already gone.
Right, that was the impression I had.
They're
Okay,
already
got
gone.
Got it.
But they still have the cultural memory of sharing the earth with them because it's
From the old world.
Yeah, because it's in legends. It's in, you know, so these stories are still with them. They come in here, and now we populate this new area with these things. So the idea, though, is that Bigfoot, getting back to Bigfoot, in the 1950s, and this Jerry Crew and his, you know, bulldozer crew. His crew, the Jerry Crew. So this area, though, where they are doing it is Bluff Creek, which is the nearest town is Willow Creek.
Oh, okay.
Which is now the Bigfoot capital of the world because it's so close to where the term originated. Funny story, though, about Jerry Crew.
Okay.
The tracks that he was finding, those were hoaxes.
How do we know this?
Because
did they find some plaster molds?
One of the guys who was on Jerry Crew's crew was this dude named Ray Wallace. After he died, his family, going through his garage and found a collection of large carved wooden feet. Actually, it was in his basement. They said, yeah, we knew. He had told us that he had been making these footprints for years.
I just imagine him going on road trips or camping and just bringing these with him and like putting prints in random spots.
And he was doing them. He put them. He was on the crew, right? He was actually doing it in this case partly because they were trying to deter thieves who were coming and fucking with their equipment and stealing supplies.
Oh, okay.
So it's like it's basically like a Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Let's create this story of this giant Yeti-like monster.
Now, if you were to actually do this and do, you know, hundreds and hundreds of footprints all in a row, it would make sense to me to actually put straps on the top of the wooden prints and then slip your feet into them.
That
would make a lot more sense. Otherwise, you'd have to walk next to it and kind of push down. It would take forever.
Yeah. And it's also, that was in mud, so it was easy to leave a print, right? According to the family, Ray Wallace was actually inspired by another guy he knew named Rant Mullins. Rant Mullins would come out in 1982 and tell about how, in the 1930s, he and a group of other foresters, he was a forester, they made these sets of feet and they were putting them out to scare huckleberry pickers in Gifford Pinchot National Forest. It was a prank to fuck with huckleberry pickers. And he also claimed, Rant Mullins says, hey, also, by the way, Ape Canyon, that was us.
Oh, wow.
We were fucking with those guys and throwing rocks at them. We didn't get shot, but we were throwing
rocks
at them.
So that explains the grizzled chain smokers story.
Yes.
Okay.
Mullins and this other group of foresters who all inhabited the area around Mount St. Helens refer to themselves as St. Helens apes. And they there's a cave that's dedicated to them. It's the St. Helens Apes Cave. So anyway, Wallace was from the same town, which was Toledo, Washington, as Mullins. He knew Mullins. He talked to him. He gave him his first set of feet, which he then copied to make his own, which is why a lot of people say, look, these feet all look the same. Well, it's because people are making their own sets based on plaster casts. I mean, but they're not always the same.
They're just big feet. So would you really need to like look at someone else's giant foot sculpture to make your own?
But they're not always the same. And that's the thing too. Is
You
that,
mentioned extra toes sometimes.
Sometimes there's ones that have extra toes or less toes.
Okay.
There's some that have weird bulbs on the side of their feet.
Oh.
So there is variation, but some of these variations might just be to the inexpertness of which the mold,
or
the
just
face ones
to
are
add
made.
interest. Like,
Yeah.
oh, this is a new one.
A lot of them lack an arch. There is no arch in the foot. Now,
flat-footed.
But even going like all the way back to our ancient bipedal ancestors, the first bipedal, like you can find fossil footprints. They got an arch. It's kind of a key trait of bipedal walking.
Well, except for flat-footed.
Who are a lot of
big
pain.
feet. Yeah, those poor big feet.
Yeah, but it's kind of a key thing of like, it's a trait. Even people who are flat-footed, there's still a sign.
They wouldn't be making these kinds of prints.
Yes.
Okay,
right?
I see what you're saying.
But then it's also funny is like as time goes on, the prints kind of get better because more people are doing research and being like, hey, you know what? We need to add like a transverse arch here to make this more believable.
Yeah, let's make it more realistic.
Right?
There's probably more people trying it.
Yes,
so,
exactly.
Like anything, it develops.
So these footprints that everybody's going to say, look at the evidence. We have these footprints. I don't fucking buy it. I'm sorry.
No kidding.
Yeah, no kidding. You know, bring me the foot.
Bring me the actual foot.
Interesting point about that is like, do I think there needs to be a dead Bigfoot? No, I would settle for a living
Alive?
Bigfoot.
Oh yeah, of course.
You know,
don't
tranquilize
kill.
it.
If you find Bigfoot, please don't shoot him.
But like, you know, capture it.
Yeah.
So we can get maybe blood and DNA samples.
Sure.
And something like look, here it is. This is the Bigfoot. Footage is not enough either. And that's going to bring me to the real thing I've been wanting to talk about, Garth.
Oh, okay.
This is blank.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. So earlier, Cody was telling me for quite a while, and I think we put it in the Polterbites episode, that if you're a Monster Squadron, or actually, no, if you're just a patron of any kind on Patreon, you can listen to our other sister podcast, the Polterbites, where we talk before we do the actual show. Anyway, Cody started explaining all this stuff to me in great detail, but he didn't want to tell me what he was talking about because he wanted to get my reaction for this actual show. So he just kept calling it blank, and it was very confusing. So please, please enlighten me. What are we talking about?
Have you ever heard of the Patterson-Gimlin film?
Yes, you told me about it.
So the Patterson-Gimlin film is...
This is the Bigfoot film.
Yes, it is claimed to be the second most scrutinized piece of film footage in human history, second only to the Kennedy assassination Zapruder film.
I remember, when Cody and I long ago were talking about Bigfoot, and he mentioned this film, and I'm like, what are you talking about? And Cody's like, you've never heard of this? And so we watched it. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's this short, I don't know, it's like 10, 15 seconds.
It's like 49 seconds.
49 seconds. And it's like shaky cam, no audio, off in the distance in the bushes is this Bigfoot walking stage right. And then he's like walking with his arms swinging, and then he turns and looks at the camera and then like disappears. That's the whole film.
Yes. So this footage was taken in 1967 by a pair of guys named Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin. Hence Patterson-Gimlin.
Was it 8mm?
It was
it looked
16 millimeter.
Okay, 16. Oh yeah, 16 millimeter was
16 millimeter. The camera that it was made on. Give me a second, because that's helpful that we actually know.
It was one of those silent movies.
Yes,
like a home video from that time.
Yes, but as you're going to find out, they were not out there to do home movies. There was a purpose.
That's something more sinister than home movies. Was a Bruin.
It was a Cine Kodak K100 16 millimeter camera.
Oh, okay.
Also, it was set at the wrong shutter speed.
Oh.
It was supposed to be at 24 frames per second, but in his haste to catch the footage, he accidentally set it to 16, but also maybe 18 because this camera had a known flaw. So it's most likely at 18 frames per second.
So it's catching fewer frames, which means the playback, if played back at 24 frames a second, will look sped up.
Yes.
Okay.
It'll also
a little bit.
It'll also make it look kind of unnatural. How can a thing move like that and walk so fast?
Yeah.
And cover such
Imagine
ground?
something's played at 1.2 times speed.
Yes.
Just a little weird. And a little quick. Okay.
But let's get back to these guys. Who are they? Well, Roger Patterson is a Bigfoot enthusiast. He read an article by a guy named Ivan T. Sanderson.
Oh.
From our last episode.
Yes, this name rings a bell amazingly.
One of the
Even
fathers.
with me, I remember this name.
One of the fathers of cryptozoology.
Yes, okay.
And inspired by this article that he read in the late 50s and the events of the Jerry Crew footprints of 1958, Patterson just gets obsessed with Bigfoot, so much so that in 1964, he publishes a book called Do Abominable Snowmen Live in America? Now, this book is actually just a collection of other people's articles that he then like kludges together with his own little narratives in between.
Oh, okay.
So it was like not hard to produce. But it's not selling very well. This is 1964.
It's not selling well. We got to find another angle.
He also is always trying to find a way to make some money. He's described as people who knew him well as a hustler.
Okay, he's like, I gotta get rich quick, Steagy.
Right?
This is sure to work. Okay.
So he goes to this this company called American National Enterprises. They were a movie company that specialized in wildlife films. And he goes to them with an idea. He says, "Hey, I'm going to go out and do a docudrama film that retells the story of the Ape Canyon incident."
Oh, okay.
It's going to be a story about an old prospector taking a cowboy and his Indian guide into the wilderness to find Bigfoot.
Okay.
And they're like, okay, sure. You know, so they put up some money for him to make this documentary about Bigfoot that is actually partly scripted. So that's what he's out there doing.
Okay. And he went to these guys. Are they going to finance it or
Yeah, he's trying to get finance. He's getting
Okay,
financiers.
got
He
it.
gets a few other like private financiers who, as we find out later, like come to sue him. Like, hey, you never delivered. When people usually tell the story of the Patterson Gimlin film, they're like, oh, these two guys are out there. Either they're prospecting or they're just going out on a trail ride and they just happen to find Bigfoot.
Not that they're looking for him.
They are out there actively looking for Bigfoot
Okay.
to film for a documentary.
And
they're
lo and
trying to
behold, they found him.
Right?
Amazing.
Yes. After 20 days. That's a key thing there. Actually.
Oh, okay.
So then Patterson rents a camera. He rents the camera we mentioned. And he goes to his friend, Bob Gimlin. And they also live in Yakima, Washington. Nowhere near where the film is made in California. They live in Yakima. He goes to his buddy Bob, who is a cowboy and an outdoorsman, who would be like us going to Classic Jared, our mailman, and saying, hey, we need your mules to go on this expedition out into the wilderness to find a thing. Can you can you take us? And so he goes to his buddy Gimlin, says, hey,
Jared, will you take us?
Yeah, will you take us?
I know you're listening, Jared. we want to go find the Bigfoot.
We're going to go find the Bigfoot.
Let's do it.
We already have a biologist on board.
That's right.
We're going to go find Bigfoot. So he tells Gimlin that we're going to go out and film B-roll. I just need to get a bunch of B-roll for this documentary. Oh, by the way, wear this long-haired wig because now you're playing an Indian.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice. All right.
So they go out there, and after 20 days of filming and changing their camping locations like 15 times, they end up very close to Bluff Creek.
Okay.
In fact, they actually are on Bluff Creek, which is where the original footprints were found in 1958. The J. Crew.
Okay, this is how this all connects.
J. Crew were cutting that logging road above Bluff Creek when they found the prints.
Now, a creek is a long, winding strip of water. So is it the same point in the creek?
It's within 2 miles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Almost like that location was picked for a reason.
This seems quite coincidental.
Yes.
Okay.
They go out there, and they're riding along an area of Bluff Creek that a few seasons before a big flood had come through. And so like when you see the footage, you see a lot of down trees and debris.
Yes.
Because that's a flood.
And everything is quite yellow. There's not a lot of green.
And gray.
Yellow and gray. And that might just be the Kodachrome.
Yeah, but it's also because it's a lot of dead
film.
wood and a lot of giant logs.
Right.
That have been, and rocks that have been pushed around by this flood that happened like 2 seasons before. And that's when they see it. The Bigfoot. And so there's a big hurry. Patterson says that his horse rears up and he gets like thrown or falls down and he gets pinched under the saddle, but then he gets out and he manages to get the camera just in time. That's why the shutter speed is off, is because he freaked out, was in a hurry, and he gets it, and the footage, he's running after it, right? And
that's why it's so shaky.
That's why it's so shaky.
Yeah.
The original shaky cam.
Yeah.
Like literally the original shaky cam.
Yeah.
And they get what they get, right? Then he realizes, oh, shit, I forgot to bring the plaster to get plaster casts on these feet.
Oh, no.
We need to go back to camp.
Uh-huh.
And then we're going to come back. So they do.
So he's got plaster at camp.
Yes.
Okay.
Because he's looking for Bigfoot.
Right, of course. So
yes.
he would have brought it.
So they go back to the campsite, then they return back, and then they take the plaster cast. In that time, I'm just saying that's a big window of time where somebody in a costume could have hid or, done something, right? Just suspicious.
Okay, yeah, no.
Yeah.
I can imagine a lot of shenanigans with this whole story.
Then they make their way to Eureka, California.
Oh, nice.
Lovely town, Eureka. Which is also, I found it. Eureka. He goes to Eureka. I found Bigfoot.
Right.
And they take their film footage to airmail it to Yakima, where Patterson's brother-in-law will then pick it up to take it for development. Also, this is happening on a Saturday. By the time they get into Eureka, after they saw the Bigfoot at about 1 o'clock, they have to go get the plaster, come back to that site, make the plaster cast, get back to their camp, get to their vehicle, get to Eureka from Willow Creek, Bluff Creek area, which is that's like an hour plus drive with modern cars.
This took all day. Lots of running around.
Yes. Yeah. They would have been to Eureka probably, I'd imagine, after the post office closed at 5. That's on a Saturday?
Yeah.
Is the post office even open on a Saturday to airmail?
Back then, I think it would have been.
So they airmail it to Yakima, Washington to get developed, which is its own process.
Yeah.
Doubly so, because the footage is black and white, and then it has to go through a colorization process that's separate. That's how this we know this film.
This is old, old school.
The equipment printing to do so in 1967, that specialized equipment cost about $60,000 American dollars to have that. So not a lot of labs had this equipment.
Color developing equipment.
For this specific film, 16 millimeter.
I see.
Because first you develop it, then you have to colorize it. It's a 2-step process. So that also means that the colors we're seeing might be off. We don't know. We have to look at the original negative to find out. Spoiler: negative lost. Nobody knows what happened to negative. Every version of this you've ever seen is a copy of a copy. So then it has to go to Washington again. So airmailing it, maybe overnight. His brother-in-law gets it. Then he has to go to a place on a Sunday to get it. Because by the time they get home, I think like Monday, they say they watch the film immediately. The times don't add up.
This is why you were getting... I was wondering why the time is so important. It sounds like you're saying this all happened too fast to be practical. They couldn't have done all this in that shorter time, is what you're saying.
I think that they had it a lot longer. Okay. And so... Also, after they airmail it off, they then have to go back and break camp and gather their horses. They then are driving on a muddy road, and their truck gets stuck. And by their own account, they then have to go to a nearby logging site and unauthorized borrow a bulldozer to pull the truck out, and then drive the near 550 miles to Yakima, Washington.
Wow.
All in time to pick up. Yeah. Also,
to pick it up Monday.
Yeah. Okay. Also, Patterson's brother-in-law, when asked about it later, he says he has no recollection of what lab he took it to get it developed. He does not remember where he got it developed. He just knows that he did.
Okay.
Which is kind of weird.
Yeah,
it's almost like
hard to believe.
It's almost like you have some kind of underground film development connection because you didn't want somebody at a regular commercial lab to see this and say, "Hey, these guys have a video of Bigfoot."
Okay, so that actually tracks if they're trying to keep it hush hush.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, so also that camera that he rented it in like March. By now it's like August by October. There's a warrant issued for the arrest of Patterson because he has stolen this camera. He never returned it in time. But also suggests that maybe he was holding onto the camera until he saw the finished footage to make sure it looked right before, in case we have to go redo it.
I guess, but he could have just rented it back again. That doesn't make any sense.
So he's arrested, but then he gives them the working camera and they drop the charges. Okay, so then the footage, it gets released. They start showing it off, but not as part of this documentary. That documentary that's going to get made, completely abandoned.
Okay, so no more documentary, but we do have this footage.
Yes. And they start touring it around, and they're actually playing it so that the A&E who makes those films were turning out a lot of movies, and they would run them as double features. And so they would run the Bigfoot.
It's a pretty short feature.
Well, they would run this Bigfoot footage between the other movies, just as like intermission to entertain people and get them
Let's
all
all
riled
go
up.
to the lobby.
Yeah, right.
There's a Bigfoot walking to the lobby. Okay, got it.
But then they start touring it.
Wait, did it have any explanation ahead of time to what it was?
Oh, yeah,
So
yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
so
they-
the audience,
yeah,
it wasn't just like this random footage. Okay,
it was just back in the day when you would go to the movies.
Yeah, you'd have a double feature.
And they're
you'd have a
usually
little thing
also
between
you have
them.
shorter film reels and cartoons and stuff in between. You know,
The news of the world,
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny, and
so
all that. Yeah.
they start showing this off and getting a lot of notoriety. Bob Gimlin kind of backs out because in Yakima, which at the time was a tiny little town, his wife is the bank teller, and she's getting tired of everybody coming in to do their banking and saying, "Hey, aren't you the Bigfoot guy's wife?" Right?
So he's regretting the publicity.
Yeah, he's like, "No, okay, I'm backing out." When he backs out, Patterson, who is still on a tour circuit for money showing this film, hires another man to dress up as Bob Gimlin and claim that he is Bob Gimlin.
He really thought that Bob Gimlin was that integral to the story.
Yes.
He's like, all right, I need a new Bob
Well, I
Gimlin.
need somebody else who was there to corroborate my story.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So he hires a fake Bob Gimlin.
I'm not sure I trust this guy.
Not very trustworthy. No.
But see, that was a lie to tell a greater truth.
Also, in Yakima, there was a place where he rented the camera. The guy that worked there said that Patterson kept coming in with technical questions about things. At one point, even bringing in a Bigfoot track, because he's like, "Dude, I'm going to go film a thing about Bigfoot. Do you know about Bigfoot?" And he shows him the track, and the guy says to him, "I don't think that foot looks right. It's too narrow here, and blah, 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 it doesn't make sense." And he goes, "Oh." And then he comes back in like a week later with a new one that matches that. Does this work? But then like the guy...
This guy is not a very good
although
con artist.
There's a part of that story that I will tag in at the end.
Okay.
That actually, there is a bit of a redeemable thing here.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, he's not.
Maybe.
He's definitely made up a thing and he's making some money off of it. But I'm still rooting for him.
So the Patterson
point.
Gimlin film becomes, this is like huge. People still, they point to this and say, this is the best evidence of anything paranormal ever caught on film.
It's one of the most famous
Yes.
images.
Like I said, it really is
Yeah.
the second most analyzed after the Zapruder film. Documentaries are made about this footage, analyzing it, every aspect. You've got forensic anthropologists saying there's no way a human being could move like this.
Yeah.
Spoiler, they can. And there's all these other things. And then it's also discovered this isn't a dude. This is a she-foot. It has breasts.
Really?
Yes.
I need to look at this film again. I don't remember that.
So this actual, this individual is referred to as Patty. Patty the Bigfoot.
Okay.
Partly because it comes from the Patterson film, but also named after Roger Patterson's wife, Patricia.
I'm sure she loved that.
Patty Patterson, dude. Her name was Patty.
Wait. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, there are very distinct breasts on this individual. So it's a female. So then that makes it even more like, well, why would they add breasts to this
Is
thing?
it covered? They're covered in fur, though.
Yes, but they're there.
They're okay. There's
Okay.
yeah. Okay, got it.
So this story of this film like goes unchallenged or unproved. Like it's just it is. You can't deny it. There it is.
Yeah.
For like over 30 years, and then it starts to fall apart. Roger Patterson actually dies in 1972. The rights to the film get all caught up in legal disputes
Because it's so popular by then.
Well, it was financed by A&E, right?
Oh, that's true.
But he was entitled to a share of it. Patterson, though, signed like his rights over to his wife.
Okay.
Before he died. Remember when I said that he went and talked to that guy about the foot, and the guy in telling the story, that guy says He admitted he was up to something and faking it, or he's making this documentary, but he said he was making it because he knew he was dying of cancer and wanted to leave something for his wife.
That's sweet.
And he did. He died of Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Okay.
Right? So there's that kind of thing like, okay, well, even if this is all fake, it seems like he knew he was not going to reap the financial benefit long term.
Yeah.
And it was more of like...
It was either that or cook meth and then carry 55-gallon drums in a weird way. So I think this is a more creative outlet for him. Good for this guy.
But that also means that that's why his wife, who now maintains a controlling interest in the film rights to this footage, insists it's real, is because you got to keep it going because she has a financial interest. Yes. Right? Also, Bob Gimlin had to sue to get his share. He was guaranteed a third of the profits, and he never got anything from Patterson. So he sued, and then he won that case and got it. Patterson initially made about $75,000 off of this.
Wow.
In 1967 and his death.
Wow.
Which is a lot in that time. Here's where everything is going to start falling apart even more. It's coming unraveled. Enter this dude, Bob Hieronymus. Not Hieronymus Bosch. Hieronymus Bob.
Hieronymus Bob.
Bob Hieronymus. Now, Bob Hieronymus is
which prefers to remain anonymous.
Up to this point, he did.
Uh-huh.
He was watching Fox television in the 90s.
In the 90s?
1997, to be exact.
Okay.
And remember, Fox in the 90s. That's where we had the alien autopsy video.
I remember Fox in the 90s.
Hey, everybody, this is a 100th episode. We're pulling everything.
Yeah, yeah.
It's all coming back.
You need to have really heard every episode of The Least Haunted to enjoy this at all. No, I'm kidding.
So he's watching one of the many Fox specials.
Yeah.
And this one is on Hoaxes Revealed. And as he's watching it, they talk about the Patterson Gimlin film. And they have a segment where a man steps forward named Philip Morris. Not the smoking Philip Morris. Yeah. This is like a guy named Philip Morris who says, I made that Bigfoot suit.
Oh.
Philip Morris ran a company on the East Coast that made costumes. Most notably, they had a very standard gorilla costume they made for carnivals. Okay. Because in like the 60s,
that was a thing.
It was a wild time. And there was a expected carnival attraction that was the wild gorilla that would terrorize the young girls and the
like
teens.
That would escape from the zoo, and now it's going to run around.
Yeah, it would go and molest women in the crowd. Because it was all good and fun in the 1960s.
Sure,
So they had this gorilla costume. Philip Morris says, Roger Patterson ordered a gorilla suit for me in 1967. Here's the receipts.
Wow.
I made that suit.
That's pretty definitive. He has the receipts. And he recognized the suit.
Oh, yeah. He said that when he first saw the footage for the very first time, he said to his wife, that's my suit.
Well, did he make multiple suits? Can he point to another one and be like, look, this looks like that?
And he does.
Man.
But first, meanwhile, Bob Hieronymus is watching this and he goes, holy shit. I'm the guy in that Bigfoot suit.
What?
He had been quiet for 30 years because he thought he would face legal consequences for fraud.
Oh my gosh.
Because this film made money. And because it was done for financial gain and it's a hoax, it's a fraud. And so he thought that he would have been legally liable and get in trouble. But now seeing the guy who made the suit come forward and say it's fake, he feels that might remove some liability from him. And then he goes and he talks to an attorney, and the attorney's like, dude, you've been in the clear for, you were never going to be in trouble, dude.
Yeah,
in that case, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin, when I was 26, promised me $1,000 to appear in a film, and they never paid me. And now I'm living on Social Security and need money. So where's my cut for being Bigfoot?
Yeah, he was an actor in a very famous movie.
Yes, right? He wasn't in the union. He didn't
Just
have
imagining them coming up to this 26-year-old guy and being like, hey,
here's the
we're going to give you $1,000 to dress up in this. And I wonder what he was thinking it was for.
Bob Hieronymus was Bob Gimlin's neighbor. They rode horses together.
Wow.
When Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson went out to film, they had 3 horses with them. One of those horses was named Chico. Chico belonged to Bob Hieronymus.
Oh, so they all knew each other.
They all knew each other. So
Bob Hieronymus is just staring like, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. And he was
All these
quite,
years
he
later.
He had told some close friends because here's the thing. People who knew Bob had always maintained, that Bob Hieronymus, that fucker walks like Bigfoot. And sure enough, you can go and watch footage of Bob Hieronymus.
That's just his normal stride.
That is just normally how Bob Hieronymus walks.
I figured he was doing an ape impression. Like you look at the film and it's this guy's kind of lumbering and he's moving his arms. That's just the way he was just standard.
Bob
walk.
Hieronymus, when he was 26 years old, was over 6 feet tall.
Tall guy. Okay.
There have been independent investigations into how tall was Patty the Bigfoot.
How could you even tell? There's just rocks and
because we know
trees.
the height of Roger Patterson. He was 5'2", kind of a short dude.
Okay.
And so you could extrapolate from how high is he holding the camera?
Maybe, but it looks like it was filmed like 100 feet away.
So there's a British company did modern analysis, and their results were that this individual could not be taller than 6'6".
Okay. That's amazing that they can tell from that footage. Okay.
Yeah. It's called the triangulation and trigonometry is involved. I'm sure.
There's no horizon line. Anyway, okay.
Yeah, anyway.
That's what they say.
That's their estimate, yeah.
Okay.
Which was, Bob Hieronymus, he's like 6'2", 6'3". He's wearing,
he would fit
as
the
he
bill.
said, the suit, and this is also backed up by Philip Morris, who built the suit.
Mm-hmm.
He says it was constructed with a helmet with a mask on it.
Okay.
Like a football helmet with a mask on it, which adds a little bit of height to that. He said that when he shipped it off, he was then contacted again by Roger Patterson, who says, the suit's too loose. How can I make it look fuller?
Stuff it with pillows and blankets and leaves?
Philip Morris told him, go to the local high school and see if they have any old football pads they're throwing out.
Oh, yeah.
And also wear your regular clothes under the suit, and that will bulk it up more.
That's good, yeah.
Right? So this is something that, you have at this point, you have two different testimonies. You have Philip Morris and Bob Hieronymus, who at this point have not, as far as we know, met each other or corroborated their stories. They are independently interviewed.
That's a lot there.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And so there's certain details that were in the because Bob Hieronymus sees him on TV talk about the suit, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's certain details that are left out of his television thing that Bob Hieronymus later provides that turn out to be true, where Philip Morris is like, actually, yes, that is here. Yeah.
Okay, that's very convincing.
So, right?
Yeah.
Because you could easily say, oh, well, he watched this guy.
Sure, and then he repeated what he
right?
heard.
But there's details that weren't in the original that Hieronymus provides.
Okay. Including
that he said he did wear his clothes underneath the suit, and it was very tight. He says that he did have football stuff on, and he remembers putting the head on like a helmet.
Okay.
He also said that he was holding two sticks, little dowels, that had the gloves attached.
Oh, to make the arms longer.
Right? Philip Morris says, Patterson contacts me. He says, how do I make the suit look bigger? And I want the arms to be longer. Also, can you send me some extra fur so I can so I can modify the suit, right? This fur is a material that's called Dynel. It's a synthetic fiber that was used for animal furs and wigs in the 1960s.
Okay.
Coincidentally, years later, Bigfoot researchers looking for signs of Bigfoot find mysterious hair samples in the Bluff Creek area and send them off for testing.
No way. All those years later?
Dynel.
Wow.
Because it's a synthetic fiber and it doesn't break down.
Yeah, but it's in a wash. Like, I would think
or stuck on a tree.
I'm amazed it lasted all that time.
Now, am I saying, is this the same? Is it from the same thing? Maybe not. There could have been another person out there with another monkey suit.
I was just thinking this was such a popular thing.
Yeah.
And they know where it was filmed, so I'll bet dozens or hundreds of people have filmed their own version
or people
Bigfoot.
Going out to reenact it for documentaries.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. So
the
point is that it's just interesting that an independent of all this, another Bigfoot researcher finds Dynel out in the woods.
These are very compelling bits of evidence against this being really Bigfoot from several different directions.
Yes. Okay. Then, so Hieronymus comes forward. In 2006, he tells his story. National Geographic is like, hey, let's bring these two minds together and recreate the film.
Oh, fun.
So they get Philip Morris to produce another suit.
They're going to recreate it.
They're going to recreate it. Yes. And then they get Bob Hieronymus to put the suit on again.
Yes, he's. I mean, this is like decades later.
Yeah, at this point, he is like in his 60s.
Okay.
Both men come together. They reenact it.
This is the reboot.
Yes.
Okay.
They are able to take the original footage and the new footage and match it up. The points of articulation on the joints
that would be
match Bob
okay.
Hieronymus's recreation.
Wow.
And the original perfect.
I mean,
when adjusted to 18 frames per second, well, chef's kiss.
That's pretty good. I mean, to be devil's advocate, if they're trying to recreate it with the express intent of making it look like the original,
what is this? Some kind of alien autopsy?
they might try to take that into account, but still, that's pretty elaborate. Like that's a lot to be able to do to make it look just right, and they did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, the color, the gorilla suit, according to Philip Morris, was reddish brown. He only worked in those colors when he was making his gorillas, which is weird because real gorillas aren't that color.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Okay.
It appears darker in the footage, but also again we said it had that secondary colorization process.
Sure, and
so we don't know.
And depending on the lighting and exposure, there's a lot of things that could make something darker or lighter.
Now, Bob Hieronymus claims he didn't know who. Patterson told him that he had made the suit out of old horse hides and hair.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay.
And he did say it smelt. He's like, it stank really bad. But it could have been that like that's just what, 1960s synthetic Dynel fibers and like, stretchy materials and stuff and rubber smells like.
Sure.
Or maybe, it was altered, like dyed a darker color and he's smelling dye. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So that's all pretty conclusive. Now, to this day though, like Patterson's wife has denied it.
Yeah.
Was fake. Gimlin denied it was fake. I'm not sure. Is he still alive? Uh-oh.
Bob Hieronymus definitely is not denying it.
Yeah, he's still alive. Bob Gimlin is 92 years old, and he still tours and gives talks about the film. So he's also not going to say it was fake because he's got a financial interest, right?
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people always will point to, well, Patterson didn't make a lot of money, so therefore it can't be fake because he didn't make a lot of money. It's like, well, he did. He made a lot of money off of it.
And made it for his wife.
And it continued to make money. But also, I don't think that like the end result of a hoax should be considered, proof that it wasn't a hoax.
Yeah,
like,
was the hoax profitable? And if it wasn't, then that means it wasn't a hoax. Well,
it's like, no, maybe
it didn't work.
Yeah, exactly. The intent was different. It doesn't change the intent.
Sure.
There's a lot of corroborating evidence also that like Bob Hieronymus's mom and aunt said they saw the suit because after they filmed it, he put it in the trunk of his
what
mom's
happened
car.
to the suit?
What happened to the suit? Right. Okay, that's the thing that comes up. People say, if it was fake, then show me the suit, right? Well, it's like, well, we can show you a very close facsimile made by the guy who made the original with the same materials. It's pretty close.
Yeah.
If you made it blurry and moved it differently, and it would be indistinguishable. But where's the original? Well, apparently it bounced around the Yakima, Washington area for a while, going to drunken parties, with various people putting it on.
Really?
Yeah, friends of Bob Hieronymus and also Patterson, like that group.
I thought he would like destroy it as evidence because he's trying to do this thing. That's really funny that it stuck around.
So initially it was in Bob Hieronymus's mom's trunk the next day. After he got home from filming this, she said that she went to go put some crates of fruit in there to take to like a church sale or something like that. Opens it up, and she thought it was a dead animal in the car. And so she gets her sister-in-law, his aunt, who was their neighbor, because they're all close family, to come check. Look at this thing. They're like, oh, it's a suit. What the hell? And he's like, oh yeah, don't worry about it. His cousin, who was 8 at the time, has also said that he's like, no, yeah, I remember being 8 and seeing the suit and putting the helmet on and looking out the window to scare neighbors as they walked by. So then it bounces around, and then eventually it gets lost.
Yeah,
it probably got destroyed.
Somebody's got it.
Somebody probably puked on it, drunk at a party.
Yeah, probably ended up in the landfill.
Exactly. So like, because the odds of finding this one suit 60 some odd years later.
How would you know you had it if you found it? I mean, it's just probably torn to shreds. It's probably fallen apart by now.
Yeah. Although, as we learned, that Dynel lasts a long time.
Yeah, but that isn't. Yeah, but
Garth, you've You've seen an old mascot costume. They
Oh
last
yeah.
up very
Oh,
well,
I
right?
certainly do.
Yeah.
Looking over where it might be right now.
So,
They last.
in summation, the Patterson-Gimlin film has a lot of holes in it. I didn't even cover everything.
Oh, okay.
It goes deeper than that. There is so much, and Bob Hieronymus isn't the first person to say they were in the suit. So some people
Right.
say the fact that multiple people have come forward to claim it also means that, how do you know which one's telling the truth? It's like, well, yeah, that's a good point. There can't be more than one guy in the suit. But we have a guy.
Yeah, I guess
we have
not.
one guy who claims that he is in the suit. One of them's probably telling the truth. They can't, it's like,
Yeah.
it just means that one of them's lying.
Yeah.
But we have one who has very compelling circumstantial evidence
Yes.
of knowing the people involved.
There's a lot of details in here, yeah.
The way he fucking walks is just
That's a big
insane.
one. That's a big one.
The details that he then offered about it that back up, like there's corroborating details he gives that he would only know if he was in the suit.
And when you look at the stabilized footage,
It
it really does look like a guy in a suit.
Yeah. Let's bring up the
Because when
stabilized
it's
footage.
shaky, you can barely tell what you're looking at. It's like, whoa, that looks real. But then, you stabilize the footage, and it looks way faker then.
Okay, yeah. So let's bring up the stabilized footage. Actually, first let's listen to it. Let's get another congratulations message. It's been a while since we did one. This one is written, and it came through email. Speed mail.
Go check the email.
Check the email.
Check the email. Trogdor burning the countryside. Checking the email.
Okay. It comes from the Bye Barbarian.
Hey.
It says, "Hi, boys. No message from the field since I am in the data analysis mines, aka my desk in front of my computer staring at spreadsheets. Congratulations on 100 episodes. I am so glad I found this podcast and delved down the mongoose hole to join this wonderful community.
Aw.
Thank you for making thoughtful, funny, and creative content and creating a wholesome community around it.
Aw.
Also, thank you both for keeping me company while I power through my masters and any other future fieldwork I get up to. Love you, silly good boys, and here's to 100 more episodes. Checks notes. Love the Bye Barbarian."
Thanks, Bye Barbarian. It's been wonderful having you. She helped us out. She did some voice acting.
And she was on the Chupacabras episode.
Yep.
Also, like I said, she's down to go look for Bigfoot with us, dude.
But she would know what to look for because she's Daddy's Coyotes.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Bye Barbarian. And
also,
we love having you in the community.
And let's go for a double hitter.
Oh, there's more people?
Yes. This one is coming all the way from Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Oh,
it's New Jared.
I know who that is.
Kia ora, Garth and Cody. New Jared here, sending warm wishes and big congrats on your 100th episode. Keep up the great work, folks. Ka kite.
Thank you, New Jared. Oh, man.
Yes.
That was wonderful to hear from you as well. Oh, it's like we're getting all the family together. I'm glad that you put out a call to everybody.
Yeah. We still have a few more.
We do. Jeez, I had no idea we had this many people.
I think we got like 3 or 4 more.
Does anybody send a message being like,
"You suck"?
Yeah, you suck.
No
more.
No.
Well, I'm not congratulating you on this. Okay.
Uncongratulations. What's the opposite of congratulations?
Progratulations.
Oh. I don't know. Okay, so the stabilized footage. Like I said, stabilized footage, it becomes very obvious. This is a person in a suit.
Yeah, it looks like that.
Like before where they said you couldn't see any seams. It's like, well, there is kind of a ridge of darker hair that runs down the back that could be a zipper. According to Philip Morris, Patterson asked him, "Hey, I ran a test with the footage I did, and you can see the zipper. What do I do?" And Morris told him, "Well, just brush over it. Take a hairbrush and run it over, and it'll hide the zipper."
Oh, I see. Just push the hair over the zipper. I wonder if you were to turn a certain way and the suit was made up of different parts, you might see certain surfaces of fur moving along against other surfaces
that was the
as
thing
they
too.
twist.
People always said, it's very uniform, which suggests that that's not happening.
Or Velcro.
Or also very tight because somebody's wearing padding and clothes under it that kind of stretches it so it moves differently.
Yeah.
Also, speaking of the padding, if you were wearing a giant football helmet and football shoulder pads in a tight constrictive suit, do you think it's easy to turn your neck when you want to look over your shoulder? Or do you turn at the waist? Just look at those first few Batman movies.
Yes,
yeah. Have you ever noticed that, like,
Batman has to turn his whole body if he wants to look around?
Because his neck don't turn. Not until Nolan did they fix that problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so then also they say, well, you do see the breasts move. There's actually one frame where when Patty turns or Bob turns, his arm catches his left breast and it bounces up and then flops down.
Wow, very realistic.
Very realistic. Also the legs, they're like, people are like, oh, look at the thighs, like they move and you can see like ripples of the sinew and the muscle.
I don't know about that. It's pretty blurry footage.
Well, what I see when it's stabilized and when they do like a 4K or 2K restoration,
they're like using AI to up detail.
You can see that like what it actually looks like. That is, like, you ever wore loose pants?
I have worn loose pants.
And,
yes.
And if you step, there's kind of like a little movement of the fabric where it kind of jiggles.
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it's a fabric jiggle
okay.
where like some stuff is hanging down. Also, yes, there's a lot of motion and movement in the thighs and the calves of this Bigfoot. Its ass doesn't move.
Oh, its breasts move.
Yes.
Why wouldn't
but
its
go
ass
watch
move?
the stabilized footage.
It has a immobile ass.
If it doesn't have ass, it ain't a sass, I say.
That is the most compelling evidence of all.
Well, it's like, look, I'm a bit of an aspert, okay? And when it comes to this. And
Cody knows what he's talking about here,
I'm watching this thing move on the stabilized. I'm like enlarged it, and I'm watching, I'm like, well, the thighs are moving. But them dump trucks is stuck, man.
Shit.
They are not moving.
They've almost thought of everything.
There is a butt. Like, there is a very noteworthy like butt shelf. And when it turns, it doesn't really turn with the rest of the legs. And another thing about bipedal locomotion is we got this thing called the gluteus maximus.
Oh yeah,
our ass muscles. Those are our big leg muscles for moving and walking around. They move when you walk. They wiggle when you walk.
Yeah,
sexy.
It does makes the world go round.
It does not do it on this Bigfoot. It's a person in a suit. It's Bob Hieronymus in a suit.
So if you ever want to do your own Bigfoot footage, gotta pay attention to that ass.
Gotta make sure.
That's like the number one. Make sure you get
gotta
that
make
right.
It sexy.
Keep it sexy. Yeah, make it sexy.
Hips or nips or you don't eat.
That's right.
Okay,
that's really the moral of this whole story.
But still, it's pretty good footage.
It's good.
It lasted a long time. It's good.
Oh yeah.
Created a whole genre.
It captures the imagination.
Yeah. And so I think that's for now, because I don't want to. We've talked a lot about Bigfoot.
Yeah.
In specific Bigfoot. I mean, if we could do, it's a deep well. It is a deep well.
Sure.
Because I didn't even get into all the variants.
We mostly just did the Bigfoot footage for this.
Yes.
So I imagine we'll do other Bigfoot related.
Well, we didn't even get into
things.
Like I said, all the variants and regional differences, like skunk ape.
Oh,
or the mountain booger.
Okay.
We haven't talked about these guys.
So many.
There are other episodes. Yeah, there's different episodes out there.
Are there any that aren't gross? Skunk ape, mountain booger. Gross. I think it might be time for Garth's Corner.
Yes, it is. At the end of the day, this show is never going to be 100% comprehensive. I can't cover everything.
Well, and the way I look at it, we do all these pretty big topics, and we always leave ourselves room for going back to an old topic and looking at a new aspect of it. So here comes Garth's Corner. He came in. He came down. He came up. He came across. He walked and hitchhiked. He came down from the northwest. He strode up from the South Bay. He walked west from the East Hills, hitchhiked north from the San Madre. He came down from the woodlands to find a place to put his tendency to be blurry. The missing Bigfoot. Bigfoot, we're missing Bigfoot. We're missing Bigfoot. We missed him. Oh, where's Bigfoot? I can't find Bigfoot. Here, look at Bigfoot. Oh, wait, no. Where is he? I don't know. from the brushlands. He came down from the desert. He came on over the hills, and he was trying to find us. He couldn't really not find us. We could not see him in Bigfoot. He had a hard time recording any of it. Oh, Bigfoot, where are you? We've missed you so much. We have been wondering about your touch. We haven't seen you in 100 episodes. Oh, Bigfoot, this is the Garth's Corner where I talk about something about Bigfoot festivals. And now we got Bigfoot. Oh, we found Bigfoot. Here, look at Bigfoot. I've got a bunch of big feet over here. There's so many big feet. It's a festival of Bigfoots. The Festivus of Bigfoots. Oh, so many Bigfoots. It's Bigfoot. He has not got 2 big feet. He has just 1 foot because he's called Bigfoot. Not big feet, Bigfoot. Welcome to Garth's Corner. So, yes.
That was a long song.
Well, it's our 100th episode.
Yeah.
I had to bring him some fanfare.
Yeah, you got it.
I was doing my best. And
rock on
thank you, Gunner, for your drums, which made an appearance in that song. So, I was going to do a Garth's Corner about Bigfoot festivals, and I think you might have actually learned more about it than I did in my research, so we'll both talk about it. But Bigfoot is a very celebrated cryptid.
Yes.
And far and wide, all over I always thought of Bigfoot as a Northwest thing. Like Oregon, Northern California, Washington, but boy, he is seen everywhere, all over the country. And there are festivals, too many to count. I couldn't even find a comprehensive list of Bigfoot festivals. And so basically, you can go online on YouTube and look up like people doing vlogs of going to Bigfoot festivals.
Yeah.
You can find like news, local news doing the Bigfoot thing, and they interview
have to go
people.
to one at some point.
I would love to. And
Go
it's
Willow Creek.
it's basically like Comic-Con for Bigfoot people.
Mm-hmm.
It's full of merch, cosplaying, lots of people dressed as Bigfoot in various versions of Bigfoot. It's getting more and more elaborate where they're this Bigfoot or that Bigfoot.
Yeah. No, it's like, I was going to say, imagine Rick and Morty, like all the different Ricks and Mortys.
Yeah.
It's like that with Bigfoot, though.
Yeah,
Seriously,
exactly.
For real. It really is.
It really is like Comic-Con.
Interdimensional Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Bigfoot's an alien.
Yep.
Bigfoot, is a robot.
I'm this version of it. It's kind of like downtown Santa Cruz and Halloween. For any locals who listen to this, if you ever go on Halloween night to Santa Cruz, it's just people walking around in costumes.
Yeah.
Not everybody. Most people are just dressed in their normal clothes, but you see a lot of cosplaying. There's lectures. Talks. There's certain
You might get lucky and see Bob Gimlin.
One in Honobia, Oklahoma, has a 5K race on the last day. It's a multi-day festival.
Yeah.
And at the very end of the race, there's a Bigfoot sighting at the finish line, and a guy dressed as Bigfoot jumps at you.
I think the 5K should be run dressed as Bigfoot.
That would be the real way to do it. I'm sure
Overheat
some
and
people
die.
do. Yeah, yeah, you would die. Depending on what time of the year it is, that could be awful. The whole point of all of this is that people really love Bigfoot. You don't see festivals for other cryptids, and that's
just Mothman.
Maybe Mothman. Yeah, Mothman.
the only one.
You know what?
Only one.
Mothman has some this.
Yes.
So there's something
I'm
behind
wearing
that.
a Mothman hat right now.
Yeah, that's right. But basically, I wanted to use this Sasquatch festival thing as a jumping off point to have a conversation about what is it about Bigfoot that makes him so popular to people. He's like a monster, and there's a lot of these Bigfoot festivals have featured speakers who tell their story about having seen Bigfoot. And it's always like, it's not always a near-death experience, but it's often like a scary story.
Yeah.
Like, I was in a situation and then I saw him and I was able to get away,
Well,
or
we
I
don't
saw
know
him from
if Bigfoot's
far
dangerous
away.
or not. He
But
might be.
there is a implication that he's like man-eating.
It's the
It's the implication. And yet everyone loves him. And I mean, a big part of these festivals is like selling Bigfoot merch and like little tongue-in-cheek jokes about like unattended children will be gifted to Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So it's like it's almost like the people doing it are just doing it for the fun of it, and maybe some people don't even believe in Bigfoot and go to these and enjoy themselves. It's probably
that's probably how I'd go.
Exactly, and so it's probably a combination. But a lot of other people go because they genuinely do believe in Bigfoot, and they want to meet other people who won't laugh at them when they talk about their experience. So it's kind of it has that going as well. Like it's like-minded people and all that. And some of these festivals have been going on for a very long time, and they're, like I say, I couldn't even find how many there are. There seem to be dozens, if not hundreds, all over the country.
Oh, yeah. There's even a music festival that's called Sasquatch, I think.
That was one that I found, yeah. The Sasquatch Music Festival, it's been going since the early 2000s, and it looks like they did finally stop in 2018 or 2019. Okay. But that was in the Gorge in Washington, and they had a lot of big bands have played there, and that's the Squatch Music Fest.
Squatch.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's spawned TV shows. 12 seasons. 12 seasons, Garth, of finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet.
Was that Leonard Nimoy?
No, that's In Search Of.
That was In Search Of. Okay.
But no, finding Bigfoot on the on Animal Planet, 12 seasons, over 100 episodes, and a movie, and they ain't never found Bigfoot.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
And the thing about Bigfoot is, he doesn't have, in most stories about Bigfoot, it's not like he has superpowers or anything all that incredible. It's just a big ape man that's out there somewhere in the woods. It's more credible than a lot of cryptids. And also, I think one of my theories about this and why he's so much more popular than other monster stories basically is like, there is that danger, like, oh, there's this predator out there that is a man-eater, could eat humans.
Yeah.
And so we're not the apex. There's something out there. And that's like a feeling we all have when we're out in the woods, maybe. You know, you feel like you're kind of more one with things. So there's something to that, but not a irredeemable predator, like a grizzly bear that's going to either ignore you or get you, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's like...
He might be able to be reasoned with because he's still somewhat human.
Part person. And I think that's the point, and that's why he's more relatable and beloved. You don't see grizzly bear festivals.
Yeah.
You know, there are probably grizzly bear conventions of some kind, but not with this much fanfare.
We're so scared of bears that the name bear...
Oh, yeah. I know this one. Go ahead and tell the people.
The word bear in most languages...
It just means brown, right?
Means brown. And it goes back to Indo-European because it might have been that we were so afraid of them that there was a magic associated with its true name that if you were to say the name of this animal, it would come and get you. So you refer to it in
the brown one.
In euphemism.
Right.
So the name for bear either means brown or in some places it's called the honey eater. You know, but you do not call it by its real name.
Or it'll burst through the door.
That nobody knows what its real name was.
What is Bigfoot's real name? That sounds like a euphemism.
Steve.
Don't say it. No, there is.
Actually, it was Bob. Bob Hieronymus.
So anyway, that's my thought. I'm sure I'm not the first person to have that idea about why Bigfoot's popular. That makes sense to me anyway.
We touched on it before, too, about the archetype of this wild man, this part of us that we acknowledge.
Sure. Yeah,
you know,
we see ourselves in him.
It's like when we look at gorillas and chimps. Like, they're so like us, yet so different, you know?
There's people who really want to meet Bigfoot, like Fry from Futurama. Yeah. Like, I see you within me, Bigfoot. I see outside of your monster exterior to the gentle heart within.
I'm not like the others, Bigfoot. I see through your monster coating to the gentle loner inside.
And it's fun to think that there is something out there.
It is. It really is. I like to, and I'm, pretty much a skeptic. I like to leave a little bit of a reasonable doubt that there might be other things out there that no one has ever documented well, but I don't really believe it, but I kind of like to I suspend disbelief for my own pleasure when I walk around outside.
And also this is going to be the weird thing, that the big shocker for everybody is like Cody is willing to say, you know what? For the Stahalis, Sasquatch is real. He exists. Mm-hmm. He is a part of their daily life. Like that's, so it is like a thing that is just taken for granted. That is real. Mm-hmm. As real as, our ancestors, as real as that is the spirit realm over there. And the same for all indigenous people, no, that's real that's real to you and your group. It is a part of your life. But is there a biological human relative ape? No.
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, for sure.
Both things can be true.
Yeah. But I can Yeah, you don't want to. We run into this a lot in this show.
Mhm.
You don't want to burst somebody's bubble if it's a cultural belief.
It's called cultural relativism because it impacts
Yeah.
other parts of their daily life. It was
Yeah.
that same thing where we said long ago that it doesn't matter if the thing is real if the belief in it impacts.
It still
has
has
real
It
implications.
still has an effect. It's a subjective, intersubjective.
It still has
reality.
an effect on
Yeah.
reality. Yeah.
Mhm. And Sasquatch maybe can have a positive effect on the world because if we go back to the roots, now we're talking more about Sasquatch,
Yeah.
which we haven't really delved into or know about. But like if you go back to the root, those roots of Bigfoot, that's all about being a steward of the land and
Yeah.
remembering that we are ourselves animals.
Yes.
And that we should take care of the woods. So,
And so that's the real-
maybe we should rebrand Smokey the Bear and use Bigfoot instead. Maybe it'd be more. Is
Yeah.
Smokey the Bear even a thing anymore?
Yes.
Okay.
But no.
He okay.
Not so anyone would know anyway.
Yeah, and Smokey the Bear was strictly forest fires. And since then it's like, well, maybe some forest fires are
There was the
beneficial to
Smokey
the
Bear
forest,
effect
right?
where like it became so effective as an ad campaign that we had so few massive wildfires for a long time.
Yeah.
That now the wildfires are worse because there wasn't smaller ones to
Yeah,
burn stuff
yeah,
out.
you don't necessarily want to prevent all forest fires like Smokey told us.
Not all of them.
Yeah.
The indigenous people knew that. They did control
Yeah, they would
burns.
actually do it on purpose.
Yeah, controlled burns.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So maybe Smokey the Bear is outdated, and we should get Bigfoot in there.
It's also funny that he was Bigfoot and his name was Bob Bigfoot, and he was played a monster, and his last name was Hieronymus, and we can think of Hieronymus Bosch.
Yeah.
And now I'm free
painter.
associating.
Yeah.
I am just spiraling. I'm free associating now.
Well, hey everybody, thank you so much for. I think we have a couple more.
We got a couple more.
Thanks before we do a true wrap up.
Should we just do like a run through?
Lightning round?
Lightning round?
Yeah.
Hey, Least Haunted, Michael Swaim here, just saying congrats on 10,000 episodes. Wow, and you did it in only 10 short years. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10. Congratulations, guys. Keep it going. We want more. Least Haunted.
Hey, Michael Swaim, there he is.
Hey, Garth just did something with Michael
I did,
Swaim.
yeah. This is a good time to say he and I collaborated on a one-off comic book. It's a 20-page comic that he wrote and I illustrated called One Last Job. And it is available on the Small Beans Patreon. If you go to the Small Beans, you can buy it for $6. You don't have to be a member of Small Beans or anything. It's $6. It's a PDF, but it is like a 20-page, fully illustrated comic. And
I read it. It's good.
Oh, thanks, man. And I worked really hard on it. We're both very proud of how it turned out, and we're hoping that we will sell enough to justify making more.
Yes. So there'll be a link down in the description of this episode.
Yes. So please, if you can, check it out, and that would mean an awful lot to me and Michael. So and thank you, Michael, for the shout out.
It's the Least Haunted Podcast Centennial. Haunted dolls, spooky house, pandemic has come about. Francis Bacon, gin and juice, Mothman, mermaids, the Yonku, Loch Ness Monster and Gartu, crazy camels, horses, mules, crushers breaking all the rules like Jeff the Mongoose. Loveland Frog, Yule Log, raining phantom cats and dogs, jackalopes, moon hoax, Red Barn and Greenbrier ghosts, cursed yard sales and Toys R Us, legally conspicuous, Autoron and leprechauns, Wolves and Wells, Beelzebub. Welcome to Least Haunted. Yes, we keep it formal with the paranormal. Welcome to Least Haunted. We're just a couple skeptics in this world so hectic. Kelpies, giants, trolls, yeti, queer-coded orgone energy, secret alien autopsy, Bowie and the Knucklevi, killer clowns, ghostly towns, mountain light shining so brown, Paul McCartney, Harry Price, Minnesota Man in Ice, Death Valley bubonic plague, surf another COVID wave, turn me to a shish kebab like Phineas Gage. Consent fetishist Elmo, crystal skulls in Lake Tahoe, winding sheets in the porno, pagans and the Wendigo, nightwalkers crawling Fresno, and the Hicks Road albinos, cryptids blowing up my phone while I dig for tasty bones.
This is the least haunted, cracking the coldest cases behind the monsters' faces. This is the least haunted, and no, it's not satanic, we're here to ease the panic.
Ancient Egypt, Mount Shasta, Christmas-themed dystopia, La Llorona, Chupacabra, Bloody Mary, creepypasta, spontaneous human combustion, electric voice phenomenon, demon doodle, witching hour, Angar's astronomy tower, gremlins and little green men stuck inside the Donkagen, icy faces in the floor, magic mushrooms are the door, backwards carousel of time, help me to complete the run, Capitol insurrection, all locked up still with my friends, Donald Trump and Joe Biden, here we fucking go again.
This is the least haunted, time and space dimension, bringing disbelief suspension. This is the least haunted, we finally found the truth, the only thing that's haunted is you.
Hey everybody, this is Garth from the future, just finishing up the edit for this episode the evening before we release it, and I wanted everyone out there and Jared to know that we absolutely loved this song, but it wasn't finished by the time we recorded the episode, so you're going to hear a sort of a generic thanks from us. We would have been whooping and hollering and applauding if we had actually heard the final song. So just imagine Cody and I giving you a standing ovation, Jared. Thank you. Classic Jared!
Jared!
Our mule man! Our blue roan! There he is!
Yeah!
Hey, buddy. Thank you so much for your thanks.
Oh, yeah. And I think that our listeners are going to get a chance soon to know Jared a lot more intimately.
Yes, you guys have a special project going on.
Oh, not just that.
Oh, okay.
If you've been listening and paying attention, for like the last year or so, we've been playing a secret game on this show where we've been talking about something that was top secret.
Yeah, that actually was referencing a thing, and it's been many months in the making, but we are just starting to roll it out now. So go ahead.
So we made a YouTube series. We made a show.
We did.
It's not just Least Haunted. It is us and a Hoppy Trails podcast. It is a Sequidea Productions road trip show. We took a trip up the coast of California to look at some interesting places and drink some little microbrews.
It was a whirlwind. We went to many places in a few days.
Over 300 miles in 4 days.
Yeah, we had a blast, and we filmed all of the interesting stuff. And so, yeah, we'll be releasing a series of short vlogs, basically.
Yeah.
On the road vlogs that are to do with
I wouldn't say
local
short.
beers.
Well,
I don't know. I would call it short compared to some things, but not that short. They're not like 5 minutes.
It's more like a mini-series.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's a mini-series.
Yeah.
And so if you want to see a trailer and see what it's all about, there is a link down in the description below.
And we'll put it front and center on the Least Haunted website as well, if
Yeah.
that's easier for you to get to.
It
will post it on YouTube, so
yeah.
It'll just be a YouTube link.
It's not actually on the Least Haunted YouTube. It is on the brand new Sequidea Productions YouTube
Oh, I haven't
channel.
even seen that yet. I got to check
Yes.
that out. Maybe I'll and subscribe to that, please.
You better do some art.
I better do some art, but yeah, I haven't seen it because there's nothing to look at. I better do some art
Yes,
anyway,
but, yeah.
and I better subscribe as well. So
cool.
cool.
So that'll be
Very
be
exciting.
posted, and that'll be coming out sometime soon.
Yes.
it's now closer than it's ever been before. Our Monster Squadron patron producers, they got a sneak peek. They got to see a segment from a future episode of that series
Yes.
at a recent Monster Squadron hangout. So if you are bummed that you missed that out, why aren't you in the Monster Squadron?
You could have seen it.
You could have seen it. They know something that no one else knows. They're in the club now.
Oh yeah. There's some pretty extreme
NDA shit.
Yeah.
going on.
Oh yeah. They're not allowed to say what we did. Anyway,
speaking of Sequidea and Sequidea Productions, Travis Alexander, the host of the Hoppy Trails podcast and our co-founder of Sequidea with us, he sent us a congratulations.
He did?
Yeah.
Oh, let's listen to it.
Cody, Garth, this is Travis, your Monster Squadron level patron and co-host of the Hoppy Trails podcast. We just want to congratulate you on this milestone. 100 episodes. That's amazing on its own, but the fact that it's been consistent quality content, That really puts you in a special place apart from so many other creators. It's been an inspiration, and we've loved listening along, sometimes participating as guests, and we really hope to see you keep going forward. 100 more after that. Keep up the good work, and we'll keep spreading the word. Cheers.
Thank you, Travis Alexander. Thank you.
And you'll get to know Travis a hell of a lot more, too, on our road trip show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's picture this. Picture it. Me, Garth, Travis, Muleman Jared in a Honda Pilot for 4 days, cruising around, going to breweries and seeing shit.
Yep.
Don't you want to watch
good
that?
Times. Oh, yeah, no. You do. If you're wondering if you do, no, you do. It's good. It is good.
It's very entertaining. Also, Travis Alexander is on our Monster Squadron, as is Muleman Jared.
Oh, maybe we should list off everyone on the Monster Squadron.
Yes, episode 100 Monster Squadron list. Ah!
You can do it, Cody.
Travis Alexander, By Barbarian, Rachel Krieger, Tom Dahl, Justin Duckham, Kelly Flynn, Gunnar Franks, Carla Harrington, Havelock, New Jared, Brian Lamb, TJ Levenhagen, Alicia Overton, Jordan Ramey, Blue Roan, and Tatum.
That was 16. Nicely
That's all
done.
of you. We didn't see all of you at the Monster Squadron hanging on the Discord.
Not every Monster Squadron person is into the computers.
Discord. Yeah, it's true.
They don't all have the computers and the email.
Yeah.
But those of you who do are totally welcome anytime.
We got new Jared in our last meeting.
That was cool. Yes.
He was talking to us from the future.
Yeah,
he was Friday night for us, but it was Saturday afternoon for him. Time travel. It's real.
It is, yeah.
I
told you, Cody. I told you.
God damn it. Although, real talk, we never did get that message from that time traveler.
Yeah. Remember that time loop episode we did on Groundhog Day? Yeah. So conclusions. I guess they just don't like us.
No time travel.
They're just being too responsible is what it is.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we will all see you.
Nothing in the P.O. Box?
Nope.
P.O. Box 22, Redwood Estates, California, 95044. I'm trying to think of this. Any other business? That
Nothing I can think of, unless you have any spooky checks. I don't.
I saw the other night, and you were there. We saw blacklight receptive little millipedes.
That was really cool. Yeah. So, yeah, I did not know that they would glow under black lights, and we were shining a flashlight up into the hillside, in the redwood trees outside of Cody's house.
We were trying to see if there were cool looking mushrooms under blacklight,
but we could see off in the distance these little twinkling green glowy things from 20 feet away, and there were several of them all over this hillside, all spread
like
out.
Stars.
Yeah, each one 5 feet from the next. And we get up close, and it's little glowing millipedes.
And if you go to our Discord and go to the pets tab, because even though it's not a pet, we just put all of our animals
that counts as a pet.
We put all of our animals in there.
Yeah.
You can see video of this little rave millipede. He is
cool. I gotta check
rad.
that out. That's awesome.
Oh, man, he is so cool. It's video of him crawling along, and he's just glowing. And it's weird because, there's no reason for him to glow.
Yeah, why would they be blacklight receptive? It must be...
It's the same question about scorpions. They do it too.
Yeah, it must be that there's some other quality they have that happens to also be blacklight receptive.
Yeah.
Because I can't see why you would evolve on... Nothing evolves on purpose, but why something would develop like that? How is that an advantage?
Yeah, nobody
I don't know.
There's also a millipede that's down in the southern Sierras that is actually bioluminescent.
Oh, wow.
But it's blind. So why does it glow?
It wants to be found.
They think it's actually an example of, some things are brightly colored to warn that they're poisonous.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's doing that. It's like, don't eat me, I'm poisonous. But if I'm some insectivorous predator, I'm going to hey, that glowing little worm, I'm going to eat that.
That's the thing about brightly colored animals that are just saying, don't eat me, and look at me. It's kind of like, the first one to be seen by a predator is the sacrificial one that'll save the others, because the first time the thing eats it and gets poisoned, it's never
also don't
gonna do it again, but it'll do it the first time.
PSA: don't eat millipedes; they're full of cyanide.
Oh, I was gonna. Okay,
but
thanks for telling me.
Lemurs.
What?
Remembers the prosimians.
We spoke about them earlier in this episode.
Yeah,
yes,
they get these giant millipedes. And they gnaw on them, which stresses out the millipede, so it starts secreting a mild this like arsenic.
Uh-huh.
And then the lemurs trip the fuck out on it.
Whoa.
And they actually have examples of lemurs who become millipede addicts. They won't do anything.
Oh, no.
If given the choice of food and more millipede, they'd choose millipede, dude.
Oh, no.
Yes. And that's
Those poor lemurs.
A depressing fact you didn't need to know.
We need to develop a lemur rehab program.
That fact is going to haunt your mind. But speaking of other things that are haunted, let's just say...
I don't know.
Is this the 100th time we're going to do the sign-off?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Drum roll?
Okay, here we go. Yeah, I've got some drums right here.
Oh, diegetic sound. Until next time, the only thing that's haunted
is you.
Woo!
If the Patterson film is a hoax, there are 3 witnesses. One, Roger Patterson, is dead. The second, Bob Gimlin, isn't talking. So the question is, what about the guy in the suit? Several people have come forward over the years to claim that particular honor. We're here to meet Bob Hieronymus, who as a young man used to ride with Patterson and Gimlin. Bob claims that back in '67, he was the guy who strode across Bluff Creek in Patterson's Bigfoot suit. Around here, there are a lot of people who will back Bob's story up. And, well, there's that walk.
People say I walk like Bigfoot anyway.
The Least Haunted podcast is recorded before a dead studio audience and is a presentation of Sequidea Productions LLC.